Everyone, welcome back to Salty Tarot. Today we're going to be looking at how to find a creative healing resolution in your current connection with the person in your heart. So we've got 3 piles to choose from. We've got pile 1 with this rose quartz crystal. It's got a lot of layers and inclusions which are shimmery and beautiful. Pile 2 is this clear quartz, which sort of is clear at the pinnacle and then tapers off into a raw, cloudy quartz. It's actually quite clear inside, but it's raw at the bottom. And then pile 3 is this chrysocolla, which has also a lot of inclusions with some, I expect that's iron ore. It's quite beautiful. It's got so many colors. So those are the 3 piles. Please take your time, feel into which pile calls you. Trust your intuition. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Oh, and I'll just add that the format will be, we're going to do an energy check-in. So we'll look at your energy, your person's energy, and that's how you'll know if you have chosen the right pile. If the energy check-in doesn't resonate, then you can choose a different pile or a different reading. And yeah, so that's an opportunity for you to see whether the energies resonate, and then you'll know that the tarot messages are for you if it does resonate. Okay, we'll see you in your piles. Hi pile 1, welcome to your reading. If you chose the rose quartz crystal, this is your reading. So we've got cards for you and your person here. For you, we've got Hu Yi. For your person, we've got Esm. Just gonna check that these are in the screen. For you, we've got the Well. For your person, we've got the Sulky. For you, we've got the Lamb. And for your person, we've got the Owl. And for you, we've got Ouroboros, the Great Serpent. And for your person, we've got Lightning, Leucosis. So we're going to start over here with you. So starting with Hu Yi. This card is about integration of, it seems like you're in a space of integrating polarities within yourself. And sort of actively seeking, of course, as soon as I start the reading, my animals start up. They've been sleeping for hours. So if you're hearing background noises, that's my dog chewing an antler. So Hu Yi, I'm just going to go back to the guidebook for this. So you are doing better, have traveled further, and are getting closer than you realize. Though you may not see evidence of it, your steady application of will and intention is coalescing into a liberating potency. You shall have your sacred outcome, but you must submit to the greater wisdom of universal cycles and divine timing. You do not need to react or rush. Keep your mind open and relax into the process. And so this card talks about integrating. It talks about Tiger as divine masculine energy as well as divine feminine energy. The divine masculine form of it is as protection against the negative effects of jealousy, gossip, ill will, or anything that would sabotage one from achieving one's purpose. And in the divine feminine sense, it has to do with grandmother wisdom, and also the protection of the sort of interdimensional travel that the soul will navigate on its spiritual journey. So she's sort of like the cosmic priestess or midwife who's guiding souls through spiritually difficult transitions. So if you're traveling between earthly and spiritual, she will help midwife that transition for you. And so there's a lot of information about staying the course, continuing to work at things while also allowing in flow and integrating those polarities of the masculine and the feminine. In this case, the protection element of the tiger as divine masculine, whereas together with the sort of midwifing qualities of the divine feminine, and continuing to pursue that which your soul is dedicated to. It talks about the sacred eroticism of combining those two energies within yourself, and encourages you to integrate and devour all parts of yourself. So calling in all of the different pieces of yourself that will help you achieve your goals. Boldness and patience, for example. The well talks about tending. So if the guidebook talks about wells being sacred. So wells, of course, are a source of life, but they were also held to be gateways to the other world in ancient times. And wells had different properties depending on the well. They had sacred fish that would come up from the other world with messages. They had different things that they could foster for humans, and they all needed to be tended. So it talks about, if you neglect a well, then you will not be able to receive those gifts from the other world, nor the nourishment from the well. So a similar message to care, take spiritual care. So to care for that which you are incubating or attempting to bring into being. The Lamb card was interesting because the meaning of the Lamb card to me is very different than how lambs actually act. But it says, peaceful, prophetic, patient. The Lamb is the bearer of an important message, which can only be heard when a deep level of quiet has been established. It may come through another person, perhaps a stranger, perhaps someone you know, and it will repeat and reverberate until you hear the message. Approach with patience and reverence. Sit still, listen, receive. It talks about the Lamb in balance being about knowingness and inner peace, which is sort of what these two cards are calling on you to cultivate at this time. And it says, when out of balance, quiet, timid, concerned. The thing about, and the way to bring it into balance is meditation and listening. The thing about lambs, though, if you've ever been around lambs in real life, they do not stop moving. They are not peaceful. Peaceful is absolutely not a quality that should be associated with probably baby animals in general, but lambs in particular, they're completely adorable, bucking into the air, headbutting each other. Like 1 second they're like climbing up piles of, I don't know what's around, like rocks or hay or whatever they've got available to them, and then sort of doing all kinds of insane tricks to out-buck each other, and then getting into headbutting. They can like jump without moving, straight up into the air, like several feet up into the air. They just go and then land and be right back into the fight. And then they'll, run over to mom and they'll suckle, and even that is like, they don't stop moving even when they're suckling. So I find it curious that the lamb is, I assume it's to do with the associations between Jesus in Christianity and lamb energy, but lambs are not still. They are not meditative. They're quite hyperactive, and maybe there's something to integrating those two energies, in the same way that there's a call to integration here. Maybe there's something about integrating that energy of the always moving quality of actual lambs with the sort of archetypal idea of a lamb as being gentle and quiet. Yeah, gentleness is not something that comes to mind when I think of actual little lambs. They're full of piss and vinegar, and they're adorable. They're really cute. Okay, and then Ouroboros with the Great Serpent is about protection, guardianship, giving you the space and safety to participate in the work, transformation, so sort of transmutation, turning whatever comes up into transmuting it in service of your work, whether your work is this process of integration and tending, or whatever your work is in the world at this time. It talks about entering the quantum realm where everything is a possibility. It's sort of limitless. You think you figured things out, and then it brings you in for another round. What is masculine becomes feminine, what is sky becomes earth, what is past becomes future. So again, that sort of integration of different elements, different polarities into an integrated whole self. So that seems to be where your focus is at this time. It might be that you have felt stretched in different directions and you're sort of trying to pull together those elements of self for integration and find some balance. And it does look like a key to that balance will be tending the source of your inspiration, the source of your creative flow, but also getting still and quiet and allowing messages to come forth from the other world. So we're going to talk about your person. We're going to shift over to your person now. As in, the word of this card means bone. So it talks about foundation, structure, Saturn's gifts, so sort of putting in place foundations that can allow for work to be undertaken. And it also talks about essentially delayed gratification, so working incrementally towards a goal and having a feeling like that goal will never come, but in fact being on the verge of being able to reap those rewards. And the key is to continue that work and to make sure that steps are not skipped, to continue working away at it. This card, there's a bit of mirroring here in that this card talks about, it's the Selkie, the soul skin, so it talks about the Selkie being a creature who has her seal skin stolen by a man who wants her to become his wife on the land, and then she can't go back. She's usually only in human form for the duration of the full moon, but because he steals her coat, she is unable to return, and so she's sort of tasked with trying to fit in on the land in a world where she doesn't totally belong, and to the point where she essentially forgets herself. And so it's talking about calling back those pieces of self that have been forgotten, calling back things that one remembers with a part of oneself, and again bringing them in for integration, same as over here. The lightning talks about being at the stage of feeling like perfection has been achieved, where perhaps that sort of engenders a pride, a sense that something is complete, when in fact it's just the beginning of the work. So it talks about essentially having the humility to continue the work. So if here there's an impatience for rewards, having done a lot of work, this talks about the danger of assuming that one is at the end of the work when the work needs to continue, one needs to keep on working and not assume that one's already achieved perfection. So the sort of hubris of assuming that perfection has been achieved, when in fact one needs to keep working in order to reap the eventual rewards. This card arrives to remind us to get our hands dirty. No one is separate from or above anyone else. Rather, every alchemist is a kid in the laboratory tinkering away with the elements of their life. No more fretting over your next move, fearing how others will perceive you. It's time to crack open, become who you are. The world needs your true colors. So again, being just sort of at that verge of getting to rewards, but needing to keep at it, to keep at the work. So there's a call to integrating lost parts of self and essentially to just keep doing the work. This one talks specifically about creativity, and so how in the creative process one is faced with numerous possibilities and can become overwhelmed with possibilities. So your person might be at the stage of feeling quite overwhelmed. There's a need to simplify, a need to root down and focus on what is essential for accomplishing one's creative goals, and grounding inspiration into the material realm. So bringing it down into not just visions, but actually realizing those visions in the material. And so part of that process sounds like it will be done by integrating lost pieces of self. So your person might be at a stage where they're starting to realize that there's parts of themselves that they've forgotten or neglected, and bringing those back in order to facilitate the sort of cracking open process that will help them to ground their creative work into this material realm, help them to get to the point of realizing, making good on their creative projects. The owl is about abundance, clairvoyance, treasures. The white owl of this deck is a companion of the goddess Lakshmi and represents health, wealth, beauty, and good fortune. It's an omen that a boon or treasure is on the way, either in spiritual or material form. Your person may be seeing and knowing exactly what to do with this abundance. And so it's sort of your person might be in a place of money issues or scarcity, but it looks as if there's a transformation that is coming, and what they really need to do is simplify down, root their work into the world, and do it in a way that is authentic to their soul self. And if they do that, there's going to be some abundance coming to them, or abundance may just come to them in that process. So it might be that they, need to be ready for that so that they can integrate it well. So it looks like you're both in this process of, I think with your person, the process of integration is more about their work in the world and sort of pulling lost parts of self into that work. For you, it looks as if you're sort of in the work of the self and looking at integrating different polarities of yourself and bringing those in so that they can all serve the gift of moving forward in life. And so if those energies are resonant, then you're in the right place, and we're going to look at some tarot. So I'm just going to clear these away. Spirit, please tune in to pile one's energies. We're using the Herb Crafter's Tarot. And so we'll talk about the tarot meanings, just the standard tarot meanings of the cards, but I will also refer to the herbs and the guidebook, because it's not always clear how the herbs are connected to the traditional tarot meanings. So they may bring out different emphases. Okay, Spiro, what... That was very distracting to Gia. He's playing with his toy. Okay, how can pile one turn the difficulties in this connection into opportunities? What is needed for creative healing resolution in the connection between them and the person in their heart? How can pile one turn difficulties into opportunities in this connection? So we've got 2 of Cups upside down. We've got 2 of Wands. We have the Wheel of Fortune, 5 of Pentacles, We'll get one more and then we'll get some clarifiers. We've got 5 of Wands in reverse. And then can we get a clarifier for the 2 of Cups in reverse, please, Spirit? We've got the Empress with Rose. Clarifier for the 2 of Wands, please, Spirit. We have the, it looks like the Page of Cups. Clarifier for the Wheel of Fortune, please, Spirit. Clarifier for the Wheel of Fortune. We have the 4 of Pentacles in reverse. For the 5 of Pentacles. Clarifier for the 5 of Pentacles. Clarifier for the 5 of Pentacles. We have the Chariot in reverse. And a clarifier for the 5 of Wands in reverse. And we've got the 3 of Swords in reverse with Echinacea. Bottom of the deck, we have the 9 of Cups in reverse. Okay, so the cool thing about this deck, the deck does not refer to reversals. The guidebook does not refer to reversals for this deck. However, the trick to working with reverse energy is action, and it does specify actions. So essentially working with the herb that's named in the card. So starting with the 2 of Cups, the 2 of Cups is an energy of disharmony, missing each other, being in separation. If it's at the outset of something, it could be just having mismatched expectations, different intentions going into a situation. And it's sort of a call to cultivate awareness of where each person is at, communicate, get on the same page. And the herb that it goes with is mallow, and it says, "Let love in, soften dry and brittle wounds, welcome genuine connection." Mallow root tea cools the pain of dry, brittle wounds. Take time to soften your sharp edges. Approach partnership with kindness and emotional stability, and you will experience mutuality. It talks about the fountain of Aphrodite. Aphrodite reminds us that vulnerability and sovereignty create relationships that are self-renewing. So, and allow yourself to be drawn in by what you love. So mallow attracts pollinators. But returning to this notion of, in order to, we're talking about balancing your energies, the energies within you, in the energy check-in, and then for your person, grounding energies into practical applications. So here we have vulnerability and sovereignty are the 2 ingredients needed to create relationships that are long-lasting. So not just sovereignty, but also vulnerability, not just vulnerability, but also sovereignty within oneself. So both of those elements are needed in order to continue a connection with someone in a fruitful way. This is modified by the Empress, and the herb for that is rose. Rose, of course, has a long history of different applications and is associated with women, divine feminine. This guidebook does talk about how the buds are associated with youth, girlhood, the full bloom with womanhood, and then the hips with becoming an elder, and how the rose, essentially, you can work with all 3 parts of the rose in order to bring those different stages of life into balance. Oops. And so the Empress energies, again, I'm just going to continue referring to the guidebook because it does have some great wisdom. So it says, echoing the message of this card, it says, "Be vulnerable yet strong. Nurture love and compassion. See beauty and abundance in every stage of life. Healing the heart heals the world. Learn to be vulnerable yet strong, like the delicate petals of the rose protected by thorns. Roses uplift the spirit and inspire love. Embody sensuality in bold, vibrant ways. Let creativity and abundance flourish around and within you. All parts of the rose contain medicine. Every stage of your life, as all parts of the rose contain medicine, every stage of your life finds passionate expression. Create, make, love, play. It is a fertile, generative time. And so it's got some tips. If you're interested in picking this deck up, it does have tips for crafting with each of the herbs. You could even Google crafting with rose. It might be that part of the way out of the disharmony of the Two of Cups in reverse is by working with rose energy and sort of embodying the vulnerability and the strength in tandem. So exercising discernment and standing up for oneself, but also allowing the vulnerability of acknowledging that, you want this connection, you want it to continue, you want to genuinely meet the other where they are and be met. And to admit that, can be really difficult sometimes in situations that have, where you're sort of speaking past each other, but that communication has to happen in order to ever be on the same page. So it's not coming in with sort of an aggressive agenda of like, you need to apologize, you need to do this, this, and this. It's sort of like coming in with the acknowledgement that you are vulnerable in a connection because you want to have that connection with the other person, and that is a vulnerability, and that vulnerability is a strength, and especially being able to speak it to another person, whatever they do with that information, to have the strength to share your affection for another person, that's both a vulnerability and a strength in one. And it's very necessary in order to foster an actual genuine connection with another person. Like not hinting at something, not sort of dancing around it with games, but verbalizing, like actually using your words to say, hey, I want to spend time with you. Hey, I don't like how things have been between us. Can we make it better? Hey, I like you. Hey, you're kind of cute. And giving that voice and expressing that. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about that. Two of Wands, bee balm. Bee balm is a lovely herb that is designed to attract pollinators. It does talk about medicines that can be made with it, and it talks about embracing passion. I'm just going to flip to it rather than purely summarizing. Harness the power of desire, embrace creativity with confidence, courageously step toward the heat. An empowered, bright spirit inspires others. When making decisions, take a creative approach. Be original and open to alternative ideas. Spicy bee balm remedies heal with a kick. Walk with flames of passion under your feet. Though excitement and fear may charge your actions, be confident about what must be done. Like these striking flowers, we attract what we desire when we show our bold, colorful selves. Talks about potentially wearing bright colors that are inspired by the bright colors of the bee balm, and growing bee balm. And then the Hiha of Water, the Page of Cups, is chamomile. Chamomile, of course, is a well-known, very lovely herb that promotes calm and peace. And here it talks about the child who knows what she needs medicinally and is preparing it and needs just a little bit of assistance. And so she seeks out that medicine just kind of spontaneously without, like, very much in it, in the process, without having to think too hard about it. So it talks about returning to a beginner's heart. Calm your spirit when emotions run awry. She remembers the many times she was given chamomile tea when she was sad. She knows the medicine she needs, though she may not be able to prepare it on her own. Calms anxiety, brightens the spirit, gives oneself permission to be playful within the heart, embracing dreams, losing oneself in imagination. So chamomile can be very soothing and calming. And so if there might even be an excess of passion in the connection, and bringing some calming energy to that. If Like the Two of Wands talks about a need for a different approach. Maybe that different approach is some calmness or calming your own anxieties within the connection. The Page of Cups can also be about coming in a different way, sort of taking a new approach, as can the Two of Wands. So this can be about an apology. It can be about the beginning words of connecting with someone. So depending on your situation, if this is a reconnection, which is sort of what we were calling in with the theme for today, then it might be somebody coming in with an apology for, a redirect, basically. Maybe there's a desire to get back into these loving, nurturing energies, right, this Two of Cups, and maybe the way to do that is with calmness, the quelling of anxiety, soothing energy. The Wheel of Fortune. This is a really lovely Wheel of Fortune. It talks about how each of these plants is planted for a different holiday in the Celtic calendar. So, for example, the chives are for Beltane. And so there are different ones for each of the holidays. And so it's really tied in with the compass in the middle. It's really tied into the idea that everything changes. Okay, so the Wheel of Fortune as a shifting of the wheel through cycles, right? So it's not just that your fortunes are going to suddenly change, 180 degrees. It's rather that everything in life is cycles. And so we go through the various different herbs of the cycle in their time. It can be a card of divine timing, but it can also be a card of shifting to the next phase. And it's modified by the Four of Pentacles in reverse. Four of Pentacles in reverse can talk about coming out of attachment energies, or it can talk about being too much in attachment energies, but I'd say paired with the Wheel of Fortune, it's really calling to shifting with the changes that are occurring. So this might be a connection where you've got some history with a person where things have been through several different phases and things are about to shift again. And so this talks about releasing the past, releasing what has come before, and being attuned to whatever season you're in within the connection. So that may be one way to, rather than, hanging on to the dead plant of the last cycle, attuning to the alive plant of the next cycle, and, recognizing that that plant is what's needed in this next phase of the relationship. So attuning to what is, rather than having an idea of what should be, I guess, would be one way to put it. The Five of Pentacles is traditionally about feeling left out or in the cold. This house is looking kind of abandoned, it's boarded up, it's in need of some care. It's got a 5-pointed star in the wall. And the slippery elm is like a young plant that can give great benefits, but it's in need of tending. It's being afflicted by an illness and it's just, not being tended to. And so the guidebook talks about, again, needing to tend, in this case, tend to your connection. You have the skills it takes to survive any crisis. Protect what remains and make it through this crisis. Create a warm and comforting place to hole up while your situation improves. Do not lose faith. And it talks about, again, calming anxieties. Take slippery elm lozenges to soothe the stomach upset by worry and stress. If that's something that you are familiar with or feel called to do. Not medical advice, I hasten to add, but you can refer to herb books and see what works for you in terms of calming. Chamomile is pretty safe. I don't know, I'm not familiar with black cohosh. Okay, and so the Five of Pentacles is modified by the Chariot in reverse. This Chariot talks about cedar as a material used for crafting vessels to travel in. Actions move forward with confidence, be disciplined yet flexible in your pursuits, and embody the journey. So it talks about being focused on the journey, not on the goal. And so it might be that there's a need for retreat or withdrawal that you might be sensing, or you might be already in those energies. And this talks about crafting the vessel for moving forward, but focusing on the craft of that vessel, for example, or just being exactly where you are, same as I was saying here, being present to whatever is alive in this moment for you, within the connection, for the other person perhaps, but especially within yourself, and focusing on what this journey is bringing up in you and for you. You know, what are the gifts of this moment? You know, if you are in separation with this person, what is that for you up to do? What is that for you up to focus on? What are if there are steps that you're looking at taking towards the other person, then what are you going to use? What are the skills you're going to bring in? What are the materials? What are you going to use to build towards nurturing that connection again? And focusing really on that nurturance, on those materials, on whatever's right in front of you in this moment, as opposed to overly focusing on the goal of perhaps even reconnection. So the gift within that separation might just be becoming more focused on the present moment. We've got the 5 of fire with 5 of wands with black cohosh in reverse. Anger is sacred. Burn through the slumber of helplessness and complacency. Resist. Rage is a force that can change the world. Honor the fire that rises up within. Neither deny your anger nor let it rule you. Discern whether your rage is righteous or if it is rooted in fear and insecurity. Harness the power of your own creative source. Cultivate a strong, flexible backbone. The folk name snake root signifies transformation. Rattle like a snake and shed your skin. And one of the crafting tips is to create a rattle of power with black cohosh seeds. I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly, but so 5 of wands can be about strife, disagreement, ego clashes, and so this is a call to discern whether those energies, whether that anger is like sacred rage, whether it serves a purpose, or whether it's coming from ingrained patterns, automatic programming, insecurities, things that one might need to sit with and clear, invite to clear. And this is modified by the 3 of swords in reverse, echinacea. Speak the truth about your heartbreak. Be the medicine that heals the pierced heart. Healing from grief takes time. Heartache leads to self-knowledge. You may be confronted with an agonizing reality. So in reverse, this could be about coming out of that heartbreak, where it also could be coming to terms with heartbreak and moving on. For the crafting, it says, find expression for your heartbreak, write your story. It talks about going to the prairies where echinacea used to bloom in abundance. Seek out strong allies, find comfort in your sorrow, sit with your grief for as long as it takes. Find remedies that increase resistance to infection and build a strong body. Embrace painful truths, which through resilience. So I'm really seeing a call here to communicate, open communication, being in that vulnerability of open communication, of focusing on the process rather than on the goal, but doing it all in a spirit of nurturance with calmness, having decided whether your grievances maybe within the connection are ones that are in need of communicating or in need of releasing. And as in the energy check-in, maybe there's a call for you to integrate those 2 energies and to be in both at once and be focused on the journey. So honoring your sacred rage, giving it voice, while also bringing in calmness, release, tending, and doing that both within the connection and within yourself, and focusing on that, adjusting with the changes that are happening. It might be that you and your person are turning the wheel to a new phase of your relationship with each other. And if you've been in separation, that might mean getting back together. If you've been struggling in a relationship, it might mean separating. But whatever the case, there's a strong call here to flow with whatever those changes are and honor whatever is right in front of you in this moment and bring to it your tending, your nurturance, your calmness, without denying anything that is out of balance and needs addressing, whether that's between you or within yourself. And so this peach, this 9 of Cups in reverse, it can talk about dissatisfaction, but the 9 of water in this deck talks very much about celebration. And it refers specifically, I was thinking in reverse, it says, peach tea cools inflammation, wash away the heat of negativity and disharmony. The luscious fruit of the peach brings the slow gift of summer to life. When your deepest wishes come to pass, enjoy them fully and offer gratitude for your blessings. So it talks about emotional nourishment, allowing happiness to fill your heart and enchant your senses. Enjoy your own sweet company. Honor yourself with a sacred bath of peach blossoms, sensual oils, and perfumes. So I hope that's helpful, pile 1. Thank you for being here. Please do like, subscribe, give a little subscribe. That would be the best way to help me grow the channel. Any comments, if you have any comments, write them down below. If this is resonating, I'd love to hear about it. If there's anything that is, if any of these herbs are particularly calling to you and that you feel called to work with, I would love to hear about that and what ways you plan to work with them. And otherwise, we're going to leave it there. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hi, pile 2. Welcome to your reading. If you chose the clear quartz crystal, kind of clear into cloudy, raw quartz crystal. I think it's got some iron inclusions. They're on the inside. So we're going to do this in a person A, person B format. My intention is for you to be here and your person to be here. So let's have a look at your cards. You've got charcoal. Well, your person has crested crane. Just going to make sure that we're on the limits of what can fit in the frame. We've got the fisherman's court for you. For your person, we've got the fall. For you, we've got crow. For your person, we've got the cosmic egg. For you, we have separation. And for your person, we have coagulation. These are both near the very end of this book, but we'll start here with charcoal. We'll have a look. I might, rather than just doing you, I might go back and forth between the two of you because there is some mirroring here. I'll feel into that. We'll see. So, charcoal is a call to embrace chaos. So if you're feeling like you might be in a bit of a chaos moment, there's a lot about, it doesn't quite use the word surrender, but I would characterize it as surrender in the description for charcoal in the guidebook. Challenges that you are working through are purposeful divine catalysts for your healing and transformation. This is the means to your awakening and will support your soul empowerment and life purpose. That may be as a creative, a healer, guide, medicine worker on this planet, or in some other way that your heart recognizes as true, authentic, and meaningful for you. And it talks about shedding resistance and embracing wisdom and your life with a fearless heart. So we just had a bit of a caterlude and so I had chosen a card for the subject of this reading, which again was the topic of transforming, sort of alchemizing what is difficult or painful into something that serves. And it was inspired by a card from this deck that I was just referring to. And as soon as I talked about embracing the chaos, the cat walked over the table, and the card that I had chosen, you might be able to see the difference between the card in the picture here and the actual card. The cat walked over the table, knocked over the camera and tripod, and this card ended up, which was set off to the side, ended up falling into the candle, and the woman in it has been pandified. So again, this was a reading intended to bring about creative healing resolution, about how you can bring about creative healing resolution out of difficulties between you and your person or in the connection. So I feel like we just were anointed. So anyway, back to embracing the chaos. There's a division between chaos created by humanity as part of life in service to our growth, and chaos which requires spiritual intervention to avoid dishonoring life and disturbing the soul. We must decide where the chaos in our lives sits on the sliding scale. So it's a little bit about boundaries, and charcoal being a substance used for purification, blessing, sacred transformation. So essentially it's, it's almost like a reflection of this. Like if this is the situation, the task, then charcoal might be the means. So you might want to work with charcoal. The tarot that we're using today is the Herb Crafter's Tarot. And that is the cat demonstrating his fierceness, since he was just chased away from the table. Very gently, but he always has to come back and assert himself. Both of them do. It's quite interesting. If they get in any kind of trouble, then they immediately go and scratch something. So anyway, it talks about releasing. So releasing what is not working and trusting that when something is destined to enter your life, it must happen. When something is not in alignment with the path, it will have to be cleared from your life. And this is always for your highest good, even if it doesn't feel like that at the time, in both cases. And essentially, to conquer fear, you are encouraged to trust that there is divine potential in every situation in your life, and know that what is brought to your door is a delivery of opportunity. All gifts and challenges are a vote of confidence from the universe, a recognition of your spiritual capacity for soul alchemy, transforming the lead of suffering into the gold of personal healing and spiritual growth. The Fisher King's Court, or otherworldly treasures. The Fisher King's Court, in a large body of European legends about the quest for the Grail, is an otherworldly source of nourishment and treasure, which can sometimes be seen in this world. But this magical place, usually situated on the banks of a great wide river, offers us more than just fine food and jewels. It is the source of all the treasures of the living earth, the wild things, the beauty of the natural world. The other world is a lush and fertile place. It might sometimes be dangerous, with traps for the proud or unwary, but it is a land of abundance, a place of beauty and harmony, not a place of darkness and terror. It exists outside the laws of time and space, home to deities, spirits, and supernatural beings, and to our ancestors. It is a world which runs parallel to our own, and which might sometimes seep into it. The other world is elusive, accessible only at certain times of the year, at certain thin or threshold places, or by invitation. For our ancestors, it was just as real as our own world. It was simply perceived in different ways, not with the physical senses, but with what we might think of as the psycho-spiritual senses. This card reminds us that we'll always find our greatest source of joy and nourishment in the magic of the land, which is the gift of the other world. It reminds us to be grateful for and respectful of the abundance we're offered. Then we have Crow, which has spiritually strong, creative, watchful. When in balance, psychic, strong, clear. When out of balance, ungrounded, hypersensitive. To bring into balance, daily meditation practice. It's a symbol of magic, drawn to the supernatural, has the gift for seeing the unseen, knowing the unknown. Sometimes that light flickers, but I always find it interesting when exactly it does, so that felt potent. It is said that the crow holds within its mind eye the three realities, past, present, and future. Crow energy is potent and should only be tapped into when the mind is clear. Those with crow tendencies must balance their lives with a healthy diet, joyful friends, and regular self-study. So these two cards are very much talking about holding psychic balance, holding space for your gifts, allowing messages from the other world to come through, holding with your perception of the other world. Even as this card talks about embracing chaos and creating the boundaries around distinguishing what is, chaos that serves and chaos that is potentially toxic. And so the way to ascertain that or draw those boundaries might be by honing in on your sense of what is beyond this world and trusting that. And making sure that you're in a spiritually clean place when you do that. So maybe you're in the process of doing that now. We've got the separation card here. And I'm finding it really interesting. I might jump right over to coagulation after this. So, in fact, we're going to jump over to this and then we'll read that because this card comes first. And then separation comes after. Actually, no, that's fine. We'll go to separation first. So separation seems to have the energies of the opposition in it. So it's holding like the astrological opposition. So when two planets are opposed in an astrological chart, they're in an aspect of tension. And essentially, being opposites, they hold the seed of the opposite within them, and they're sort of drawn to each other, yet also repulsed from each other in that they could not be more different. But because they're so different, they need each other for balance. So whatever the opposite polarity holds, that's what each of the polarities is sort of subconsciously drawn to, calling in to integrate. And so that active integration is what eventually leads to, if you're working with your astrological chart consciously, then that's sort of it. The chart is the template, it's what you have to work with. And so as you are able to work with, for example, if you have two planets in opposition in your chart, then you have, it's like you know what you need to work with. By integrating those two energies, you're able to go beyond what is set out in your astrological chart towards a more holistic life. And if you have an opposition coming up in transit, then that gives you, it's like a temporary, calcification, I want to say, of those energies, a chance to work with integration of the two polar opposites for the time that that transit is in place or for a little bit afterwards. Anyway, so separation, the description was reminding me of that. So differentiation, divide, to cut away. Separatio is the great alchemical operation of the sword. It occurs when substances are pulled apart for the higher good, either willingly or unwillingly. The fissure may take place suddenly with a swift blow of the axe, or slowly over time with a dull blade. No matter how separatio occurs, it will likely be a painful process for all involved. Swords and knives, battles, rebellion, breakups, divorce, and atom splitting are expressions of separatio. It prepares the individual for a more conscious union down the line. It releases stagnant energy and allows the parts to see themselves as individuals. This stage is a prerequisite for conjunctio, or union, love. Through the pain of separatio, we come to accept and love ourselves as we truly are, and in turn, we love the world. And in terms of things to meditate on, it says, language is also a way that separatio is expressed through labels, titles, and definitions. Notice whether your word choices are inclusive or exclusive and adjust as necessary. And so this is the second to last card in the deck, and the next one is conjunction, which is love, divine union, infinity. So it suggests that although it is a painful process of individuation, it's necessary for that conjunction to take place. Not astrologically, but alchemically. Prior to that, we have coagulation. So we're going to jump over to this, and then we'll make our way back here. So for your person, so you're in these energies of, perhaps there's a chaos of separation that is happening between you and your person, and you're being called to set boundaries, distinguish between what is worth working with and what is worth cutting away. And in doing that, it seems like you're tuned into a higher wisdom, your higher self. You either are, or you're being called to work with yourself as a distinct individual in that quietness of meditation, allowing the messages of the crow to come through, bringing you messages from the other world. And that might in turn help you see, where you want to take this. If you are indeed in separation, where you want to take that next. Your person is coming through as coagulation, solidity, adherence, stuckness. So this card's a few cards before separation. And I'm going to read it out again because I just think they're working really interestingly together. Coagulatio is the great alchemical operation of Earth. By way of this operation, we experience that which was fluid churning into a solid formation. The formerly disparate ingredients begin adhering together into a fixed and solid unit. The result is visible, reliable, and eventually concrete. When you hear the phrase, "it is finally taking shape," coagulation is underway. The shadow aspect of coagulatio is that the elements may have come together without much awareness, and in turn, they become unconsciously attached. Inertia and resentment set in. The parts can no longer separate, even if they wish to. Many long-term relationships have coagulatio aspects, a naturally occurring codependency by which both parties feel unseen or unknown as individuals. The work of coagulatio is to experience the merging with other, while not losing oneself in the mush. And as something to ponder, it says merging into traffic. So imagining being that single unit merging into the greater flow of traffic without losing the individuality of one's own vehicle. And so this is speaking to me of perhaps your person is in more sort of attached energies. So if there's something happening between the two of you, it seems like your person is maybe not at the point of letting go or accepting, whereas you seem like perhaps you're a little bit more at the stage of, or interested in, maybe at a higher level, if not on the conscious level, this separation and learning what it can teach you. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily a separation for good, but it looks as if you're feeling a call to see what the gift of individuation can bring, maybe in service of this connection down the road, or maybe in service of whatever is coming next for you. And so it is for you to decide, of course, whether that will involve your person or not. But it seems like your person is still in this sort of pre-separation energies of coagulation, of the sort of stuckness, of not being able to distinguish between your individual selves in a way that is maybe, it's sort of, there's a lot of references to stuckness or almost holding back, being held back. But in the meantime, they're also coming through as the cosmic egg and the fall. And then we'll have to look up this crested crane, marks the center, to get a bit more wisdom. But the cosmic egg is sort of like the world card in tarot. It's the end of the deck. It refers to the seventh, it's got an affinity with the seventh chakra. So that's the crown chakra, the sort of state of merging with divinity. And you can see it as the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, but it's sort of like the end, the definitive end. And so, but it's also a really potent, powerful card insofar as it is the completion or the amalgamation of everything that's come before. So this would be like the conjunction card in this deck. So completion, harmony, the infinite within the finite. The unfolding of cosmic consciousness emerges after we've tread the path for quite some time, and through self-effort and grace we experience self-realization, contentment, oneness, self-limiting, the veils of our self-limiting beliefs are lifted. So your person might have had some self-limiting beliefs that maybe were keeping them stuck, and maybe those self-limiting beliefs are being lifted, and maybe to do with the relationship, maybe to do with their own confidence, might be within relationship, or it might be outside of the relationship in other areas of their life. It's a card of integration. And it refers to, in the description of its connection with the 7th chakra, it says, once the final epicenter of consciousness is activated, it is said to radiate the light of 1,000,000 suns. So it's quite a potent card spiritually. So that energy is available to your person, and maybe they're working with those energies already. They're coming through also as being in the fall energies. So this is sort of like one moment after the Fool card. So we expect that, we're going to set off on a new path, but instead we miss the path. We find ourselves stumbling, plummeting down into the dark. And so it says, let yourself fall, and this is your person. Sometimes we have to let ourselves fall in order to kickstart the process of transformation to which we've now committed ourselves. We have to let go of old thinking, old limits, and let the old ways die to make room for the new, because once you've stepped across that threshold, it is for sure a severance, a kind of death, and you can never go back to what you were before. It's hard to fall forward into the wind, to let yourself topple off the edge. It's a big step, and it's the first movement toward wholeness. Leaving behind the safety of familiar structures and supports, a massive letting go. These are edge-dwelling days, and if we want to live up to them, we must stand there consciously, aware of the troubled times, the endangered planet, and of our own volition to still step out across this first threshold. And at some point during the fall, your person may find that they're flying, after all. And so your person looks as if they're sort of in these stuck energies, but there's a radical transformation happening in which they're being invited to fall into essentially surrender, as we were saying before. So there's a call to surrender to the transformation that is happening, and that transformation is going from very stuck energies to very sort of free-floating, falling/flying energies. Let's have a look at the crested crane. So it refers to the center of the mandala, a wild card moment on the soul path where many new potentials and opportunities arise as if out of nowhere. The realm of magic, synchronicity, and the unexpected. Things may seem to be falling apart, but in a more meaningful and true way, they're really falling into place. Spontaneous sacred shattering of construct and conditioning leads to rapid inner and outer reorganization. Naked and free from ideation and interpretation. So dissolution of karma and just moving into a purity beyond what might have been holding one back. And it talks about embracing imperfection and the sort of good enough. So essentially, radical surrender is what your person is being called to, I would say. It looks to me as if you are already sort of in the surrender energies, and that's opening a space for you, for information to come through, whereas your person is sort of at that precipice moment of like moving from this to this. And there's a radical call to them, for them to align with letting go of what does not serve so that they can move into what does and embrace what does. And, it might be a process that is radically different than what they expected, how they expected things to turn out up to this point, but it looks as if it serves them greatly, bringing them into harmony with their true self and their true path. So if that seems like it resonates, we will move on to the tarot. Okay, we're working with the Herb Crafter's Tarot. So this deck has a herb for every card of the tarot. And although the guidebook doesn't talk about reversals, I turned over some reversals in the first pile without fully realizing that. And but I think what it does have is ways to work with the herbs. And so it's almost like it's got the reversals and or ways to work with the energy built in. So Spirit, please tune me into pile 2 and how best to support, how to turn the challenges in this connection into creative evolution. We've got 5 of Cups, Golden Seal. We've got the Moon with Datura. Oh, it looks like we also have the 3 of Cups, Lemon Balm. A couple more cards, please, Spirit, for how pile 2 can transform their challenges into couple more cards for how to turn the difficulties in this connection into creative spiritual evolution. So we've got Adelita of Air. I believe that's the Knight of Swords. I'll have to have a look. And then we've got Madre of Water. That would be the Queen of Cups. And then we'll get a clarifier for the 5 of Cups, please, Spirit. We've got 8 of Swords, Licorice. I believe I dreamt about licorice last night. Clarifier for the Moon in reverse. We've got the Devil, Blackberry. I'm just laughing that the Devil's represented by blackberry, which is a very delicious yet very invasive plant. I think anyone who's ever had a garden in a countryside locale might know the temptation of that plant. We've got the 10 of Wands with Comfrey, clarifying the 3 of Cups, clarifying the Adelita of Air, which again I believe is the Knight of Swords. We've got Death with Marigold. That's beautiful. Clarifying the Madre of Water in reverse. We have the Sun in reverse with St. John's Wort. Bottom of the deck we have Curandera of Earth, Sweetgrass. I'll have to have a look at, I didn't realize that all of the court cards have different words. So let me just figure this out. Okay, we've got Hiha is Princess, or Prince, or sorry, Page rather. And then we've got Adelita, so that would be the Knight, the Warriors. What does it say for Hiha? Daughters. Daughters, Warriors. Then we have Madre, which would be the mothers. And then after that we've got the curandera, which means, sorry, my Spanish is not up to snuff. I speak French, but not Spanish. I know a little Spanish. Is the healers. So that would be like the king. So the King of Pentacles in reverse is what's on the bottom of the deck. Okay, pile 2. There are some very powerful transformative energies here. I think I'm going to start out reading out the death card because I feel like that description is kind of setting the stage for everything else. And then we'll talk about working with some of the herbs that are here and some of the messages that seem to be coming through. So death is represented by marigold in this deck. Honor that which is passing. Celebrate the beauty and fragility of life. Welcome endings. 13 beeswax candles glow inside a mandala of marigold flowers in a dark room. A skull painted in striking reds, purples, and greens is illuminated in the center. Delicate and purple paper flags, tissue paper flags, frame the top and bottom of the mandala. Monarch butterflies are drawn to the rich scent of the flowers. All things come to an end. Find closure so that you may accept renewal. First, pay homage to what must die. It has given you life. The rich scent and vibrant color of the marigold is said to lead the souls of the beloved dead home so that we may celebrate them and the lives they lived. Honor your experiences as they pass. Like the delicate paper flags, life is fragile and fleeting. Delight in the beautiful moments. As the bright marigold flowers will eventually wither and fade, embrace this time of transition. A sacred contract is reaching completion. Let the petals fall. And for crafting with this, usually it says crafting with it says crafting with death. Create ceremony to acknowledge a symbolic death. Build a mandala outside to celebrate beauty. As it is consumed into the body of the earth, release your hold on what you no longer need. Welcome transformation by making art with butterfly imagery. And so we've got a lot of call to embrace transition. And the transition is there are a number of major arcana here. Out of the 10 cards, we've got 4 major arcana. Then we've got 2 court cards. So sorry, the major arcana are the moon, the devil, death, and the sun. And then we've got court cards being what was that word again? The curandera of earth. I'm probably not saying that anything close to correctly. The adelita of air. And there was one more, I thought. And the madre of water. And so that's adding in the 11th card here. This is also the last card in the deck, which is significant, the way that it's laid out. And ordinarily I wouldn't look at that for tarot, but I felt called to mention it for this one because there's just a lot of ending energies and transformation and sort of moving into the next phase. So, and again, it's for you to decide, you and your person to decide whether this is a journey undertaken together separately, whether you're releasing something within the relationship and moving into a new phase of the relationship, or whether you're releasing the relationship as a whole and moving into the next phase individually. That's all, I'm not going to say that that's decided by the cards, but I would say there was very strong separation energies and sort of energies of embracing in the energy check-in and the energies of embracing exactly what is. And in these cards, I'm saying a call to honor the truth. So seeing the truth, speaking the truth. It seems like there's a strong call to that. And there's also I'm seeing a reflection of, like, if the 3 of Cups represented by lemon balm here is sort of like the ease of connections, the ease of, throwing a little tea party, the ease of gathering, the ease of sort of bringing people in to one's home, for example, for celebration. The 10 of Wands is suggesting that there's a sort of unseen burden to that. And so this is about the workshop sort of the apothecary just going beyond. There's shelves here that can't hold any more herbs, but there's still sort of all stages of the herb crafting process underway. And it's sort of backing up and just becoming a burden, which is the meaning of the 10 of Wands traditionally. And so it's sort of talking about what I'm seeing is that if there's like a tendency to want to kind of keep up with the Joneses, sort of maintain the pretense of good relations, between you and your partner. Maybe you've, been in a long-term marriage or partnership, and maybe there's something here of wanting to sort of keep up with this image of perfection, but it looks as if there's a cost that's happening behind the scenes for one or both parties. And so there's a bit of a call to seeing the truth of that and being able to give it voice. And it seems like that is what will bring this transition through. Really powerful transformation energies here. We've got so it starts out with the Five of Cups. The Five of Cups is traditionally in the traditional deck, it's about regret. This one had a slightly different emphasis. Just gonna pull it up again. Grief is a necessary part of healing. You may be lost in sorrow or depression, unable to move forward from a great loss. Allow your feelings to unfold. Healing can be buried deep within. Sadness can open the portal to intuition. Hope is hidden in the darkness. A small amount is all we need to get by. And it talks about golden seal being a medicine that specifically teaches us that healing is buried within. It can heal mucous membranes, conjunctivitis, wet cold, sore gums, eczema. It says, fill a small vial of bright yellow golden seal root water to remind you where hope is hidden. And it can be used to reduce inflammation. So it says, and again, this is not medical advice, do your own research, please, but it says, use golden seal root as a wash to soothe eyes inflamed and red from exhaustion and crying. And then that's modified by the Eight of Swords, licorice, Eight of Air. And that one had a meaning of, so this card seems to be more about grief, the grief of something ending. And then for the Eight of Air, so this is traditionally the woman blindfolded, surrounded by swords, and it, to me, has always had a meaning of like self-limiting beliefs. And so we had, in the energy check-in, we had sort of self-limiting beliefs coming off, being discarded. But in this case, it refers to saying no, being aware of limits, and being conscious of internal dialogue. Constant internal dialogue may have silenced you, but your body can no longer hold that story inside. Take responsibility for your thoughts and clear a path to freedom. Licorice heals the vocal cords. So it's talking about sort of throat chakra healing. Speak your truth aloud to others. It will give you power. Licorice medicine is soft and sweet. Be kind to yourself as you meet your boundaries head on. And it says, drink licorice tea to strengthen your voice. Make a talisman out of the root to reinforce boundaries. And write thank you notes to friends who have supported you through any sort of grieving process. And so there's a call to communicating, sort of catching oneself on self-limiting beliefs, but still recognizing one's own boundaries and speaking one's truth, I would say there. And then here, the moon in reverse. Datura is a poisonous plant, so not to be consumed. Just want to look at the meaning of the herb again before I talk about. So Datura has a long history of magic and lore with witches and cunning folk. Cultivate a relationship with the moon and watch your awareness blossom. The usual meaning of the moon card is to pay attention to dreams, intuition coming through. It can talk about illusions or not seeing something. And so in that sense, especially with the moon reversed, and then the devil modifying, what I'm seeing here is that there might be something that wasn't being acknowledged or seen, which intuition has sort of been gently nudging. And then the devil would be sort of that attachment to, like, maybe there's something that holds a lot of sweetness for you, but it comes with the sort of ensnaring, brambly, pain that comes along with that sweetness. So in order to have the sweetness of the blackberries, you have to have these brambles, and the brambles tend to sort of take over everything and choke out other plants. And they're really, really difficult to remove. They require hard work and a lot of digging. And, more hands than was necessary to plant them in the first place. Far more. Yeah, it says, so now is the time, Datura blooms with the moonlight, so now is the time to stay awake and witness the magic that dwells in the darkness. Embrace the power of vibrational medicine. And working with blackberry, it says, consider what desires you were indulging. Are they keeping you from seeing the light? Choose transformation. Knowing what keeps you bound can set you free. You may be feeling trapped by something you love. It feels good, yet you are depleted. So the brambles can strangle, although the berries are delicious. So just sort of becoming aware of where it is that you feel held back. And, you know, that acknowledgement, whether it's coming up very subtly from intuition or whether it's, you know, speaking quite loudly as the falling away of illusions. It needs to be acknowledged, first of all, and then it needs to be communicated and sort of boundaries set. And so the Death card, again, that card of major transformation, is modifying the adulative air, which is the Page of Swords with oregano. And this description I cannot read out loud, alas, because it refers to the whole body of women, quite a lot. So this is a herbal concoction that is meant for purification, nurturing the spirit, and being euphemistic here, but it is those things as well. And, oops, I'm on the wrong page here. So there's a careful ritual that's being prepared for, and it makes the point that there are connections between opening at the sacral chakra and opening at the throat chakra. And it talks about embracing singing, embracing screaming, and giving voice to that opening, and improving circulation and energy flow. It says, when you cook with oregano, don't forget to sing. And for another way to work with it is harvesting herbs in a squat position. So sort of opening the sacral chakra area. Any sort of, you know, yoga or anything that does that would work with that as well. But essentially it says, the adulative air is a champion for truth. She vows to remove the shame around women's bodies, beginning by loving her own. And it's about strengthening the seat of her voice. And that is, I think I've said all of the words in that description that I can. Shout, sing, and scream. Declare your truth loudly and without fear. And so it looks to me as if that is the transformation that is needing to happen. So putting down the wands, putting down the burden, and acknowledging what it is that is feeling like it's been held back, and then giving it voice, giving it strong voice, and sort of holding with your own truth. And so that, in this case, might be the way to transform it. This pile is very much speaking to me, and it'll be different for everyone, but it is very much speaking to me of a separation that has occurred or is about to occur. And you'll know if that applies to you. Again, it could just be that your relationship is going through a transformation, but it looks as if it's a very profound transformation, calling on both people to be very present to their own needs, their own process, and, you know, perhaps interrelationally as well. That could apply in a separation situation as well. If it's a conscious separation, you know, there's things that need to be spoken, acknowledged, heard, and then spoken, I think, between you, or at least with your voice, and maybe some ritual around voice. If speaking things to the other person is not an option, then there might be some rituals that you yourself can do, or with a community of people. You know, maybe this is a call to build community in order to release burdens that maybe you've been carrying alone. That may be another interpretation there. And then, so we've got the Madre of Water with oats, so the Queen of Cups in reverse. The Queen of Cups is usually about emotional blockages, something that's not flowing emotionally. And then it's modified by the Sun in reverse. And so I will pull up those cards to look at the herbs. St. John's wort is for the Sun, and oats for the Queen of Cups. But what I'm very much getting here is that The sun is a card of joyousness when it's upright, and of sort of being taken with one's own joy, sort of being in the energies of feeling young, youthful, carried away with joy. And then so in the reverse, it might be that those energies have been blocked, and a way to unblock them might be inner child work. So that's coming through very strongly for me. So you might want to look into inner child work and sort of get down to the roots of, what your inner child needs, either in this situation or arising from this situation. And so it looks as if the work is, it's pretty deep, intense work, and this is the situation, whatever's happening, looks like a very abundant, fertile opportunity to get down deep into, maybe some inner child healing that is bringing things forth, that will lead around, just to return to the energy check-in, that will set the ground for the next conjunction, whether that's between you and this person, or between you and a future person, or within yourself, for that matter. So to work with St. John's wort and oats, let's see, we'll go this way first. You can take an oatmeal bath to nourish the body, feed oats to squirrels or chickens, or grow them in your garden. Healing takes time, and she has faith in her daily cup of tea. Drink oat straw infusion every day for emotional nourishment. And then the sun with St. John's wort. St. John's wort is a very powerful herb. It does one thing that I know that is not mentioned in this book, but it increases the uptake of other substances. So if you're consuming anything else on a daily basis, like even an antibiotic, any other medications, if you consume alcohol, if you consume other substances, be very, very careful how you use St. John's wort, because it causes your body to uptake other substances at a greater rate than it ordinarily would. So just be very careful of combining it with other substances. Maybe only engage with St. John's wort if you are familiar with it, if you've done your research into that, and if you're not taking other substances at the same time. So just by way of warning, of course, anything that is in this Herb Crafters Tarot, please do your own research before engaging with. Keep bright flowers in your home to promote a sense of joy. Craft oils and elixirs with St. John's wort to invoke the healing powers of light during dark times. Wear bright red lipstick and nail polish to celebrate your fabulous self. That's kind of funny, as I never ever wear red nail polish, and I felt the need to decorate the red nail polish with some gold for this one. I thought there was more about actually working with St. John's wort, but in any event, the leaves of St. John's wort shimmer like diamonds when held up to the sun. Step into the light and show your sparkle. The flowers and buds peak at the height of summer, the most potent time for wild crafting. Make magic and medicine when your joy is in full bloom. Seek vibrant people and healing experiences that build good energy and boost your power. So it might be that you want to engage in some inner child work together in community with other supportive people. I think there's a really strong call to doing this transformational work and healing, sort of inviting in healing. And, healing doesn't come from nowhere. It doesn't just happen on its own. I mean, a little bit maybe sometimes, but integration certainly can happen, less consciously, but I think there's a strong call here for diving deep, getting into the roots, getting down into those blackberry roots and sort of pulling them up and seeing how they came to be so rooted, and, where they came from with that inner child healing work. And so it looks really, really beautiful, challenging for sure, but I think there's a strong call in the energy check-in to embrace that challenge, the charcoal, embrace the challenge and use it to draw your own boundaries, to set new boundaries. And then at the bottom of the deck, we have the sweetgrass. I wanted to call that up. So the 10 of Pentacles is legacy, sort of like long-term relationship, building a legacy together with someone. And then in the reverse, it would be sort of, it can refer to things falling apart in a relationship, or you know, an expectation of a long-term connection that maybe didn't realize its fruition. It can also refer to material challenges like trouble with money. But in any event, working with sweetgrass might be one way of inviting healing. The living earth is our greatest teacher. Braid together love, health, and wealth, and then give it away. Let a holy fragrance bring you home. Several strands of sweetgrass have been woven into long braids in a well-tended meadow. An old woman weaves the long blades directly from the earth. Her hands are weathered from working the land. Her old sun hat, worn from decades of use, rests nearby. Her bracelets jingle as she lovingly connects with the sweetgrass, humming as she weaves. The curandera of earth knows that when we share the sweetness of life with another, all may thrive. She brings attention to the rich bounty that nature provides. She visits her garden and the wild places often and shares her knowledge freely with her people. Sweetgrass grows best in community with other prairie land plants. It flourishes when it is harvested and declines when it is not. The curandera of earth tends the land out of a heart overflowing. She says, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." People are drawn to her grounded, steady presence. Her counsel brings faith and inspires prosperity. Crafting with the curandera of earth, grow sweetgrass at home and support a wild sweetgrass management project. Share the joy and abundance of life. Host a party. Eat good food. Braid sweetgrass with friends. Bless a home or gathering place. Burn dried sweetgrass braids. So working with sweetgrass might also be a way of inviting in that transformation and bringing in joy. Turning that sun card upside down. Doing the inner healing, the inner child healing, and then, or whatever healing it is you feel called to do. Working with your own body if you are a female-bodied person, or working with the archetype of the female body if you are not. That may be something you feel called to do. And bringing about transformation and pulling the juice out of this really rich, fertile, fecund time. It may not feel like that, it may feel like chaos, but sort of fall into the chaos and embrace it. And it looks like there's just very strong potency here for a complete transformation and really potent, strong healing. So I hope that's helpful. If you would care to put a like on the video, subscribe. Please subscribe if you're able to do that, comfortable doing that. It really helps the channel. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, comment. So I'd love to hear if any of this resonates. What ways are you working with transformation in your own life already? Are any of these herbs speaking to you? Is this anything that you've worked with to date or feel called to work with now? Is there anything else that you're working with that you'd love to share? So yeah, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hi Pile 3, welcome to your reading. If you chose the chrysocolla stone with some iron ore, now it's got sparkles all over it, with iron ore inclusions, then this is your reading. So we're looking at how to bring any difficulties in the connection between you and the person in your heart to a creative healing resolution. So your reading has itself gone through some difficulties, and I almost feel like it's like performatively enacting the theme of the reading. Ultimately, I think Spirit just wanted more sparkle on my nails. So every time I've had to re-record, which has happened a few times at this point, and plus I've done, like every time I touch up the manicure, I am like, well, might as well record another tarot reading while I'm here. And so anyway, this has been a week of recording, losing recordings, re-recording, and I think I've got a handle on why it's happening at this point, and will be able to prevent it in the future as long as I don't space and forget. But in any event, so it took a level of detective work to get back into your cards, and I have Scorpio rising, and I feel like only a Scorpio rising or Scorpio sun would would put that much effort into going back through every single deck and pulling out the cards. And it was like I had to start with the card that will be here, which is the only one that I remembered. And I had to sort of like piece back clues and go back through other readings to make sure that I wasn't recalling cards from those readings rather than this reading, etc., etc. Anyway, I was able to pull back most of the cards and like remember most of the cards that were part of your reading. The tarot is the only part that did record. So the part where I pulled out the tarot did record. So with the oracle cards, I've recalled most of them. The only thing that I did not recall was these cards here. I remembered what it was for your person, but the card for you, I just could not. I've used this deck many times since recording that reading that I discovered later had not made it all the way to the file where it ought to have saved. And long story, and I've actually re-recorded this intro a couple of times now. So rather than rambling about the tech issues, if you're curious, put a note in the comments and I can explain it all. But leaving that aside, so yeah, I think Spirit just wanted more sparkle on my nails. If you look back on the video, you'll see an evolution from like mostly red with a tiny bit of gold to like this is out of control gold sparkle at this point. Okay, so the cards, yeah, so these cards, I could not recall what the card was for you, and I narrowed it down. I had this short list. I eliminated all the cards from other readings, and it left me with 2 cards that seemed like possibly they could have been the card, and I just wasn't comfortable picking one versus the other. I decided to reshuffle and let Spirit choose a new card for you, and 2 cards came out at the same time, and one of them was one of those 2 cards, and it has a companion card that is very much not the other one. But anyway, it came out quite interesting, and so I'm looking forward to getting into that as well. And so with that said, we're going to get into it. So we've got cards for you and your person. For your person, we've got the Cicada Christ. And I was just saying, I lived in Japan. It's funny, both these cards actually call up Japan for me. Yeah, so but I'll get into that when I talk about them later. For you, we've got Dragon's Gate for you, the Cicada Christ for your person. Oh, and I was going to say, I've heard it pronounced cicada, I've heard it pronounced cicada. I have come to the conclusion that cicada is the one that kind of has resonated for me in the long term, so that's what I'm going with. And so for your person, we've got Earthworm. These are like not coming out quite in the order because I have been through this so many times that I just don't even care about the order of things anymore. But I know exactly which ones are you and which ones are your person at this point. And so there we go. Those are your oracle cards. So we'll start with the Dragon's Gate, and it actually recounts the story of the koi turning into... So this is quite a significant story for young children in Japan. Everyone in Japan will know this story, and potentially people of Japanese descent might be aware of it as well, or of the general iconography that the koi are said to turn into dragons. And it's a symbol of strength in Japanese culture, and it's like a symbol of little boys, essentially, and with the idea that they'll grow into men and become strong dragons. And so, you know, I'm a little less gender binary than most of Japan, I would say. And I really loved that imagery. And one of the tattoos that I really wanted to get while I was in Japan, I didn't end up getting it, was of a koi fish sort of turning into a dragon. Or even just a koi fish. I wanted to get one on my leg. Maybe I will someday. Anyway, this is a very beautiful description, so I'm going to read a fair bit of it out. So, Dragon's Gate. Your effort shall bear bountiful, blessed fruit, beyond your current expectations. Rest when necessary, but refuse to turn away from your goal out of fear or fatigue. Acknowledge how far you have come, and you will gain confidence in your abilities to go even further on your path. Trust the inner urge to venture forth towards your heart's calling. Although you cannot yet see it, you are close to crossing a significant threshold, overcoming a long-standing obstacle, and experiencing an irreversible liberation. What your heart seeks is within reach. Do not give up. Koi fish were brought to Japan from China, and between these two cultures they share a powerful mythological medicine teaching for the soul. In Chinese and Japanese myth, a great school of thousands of koi were swimming upstream, gaining strength through pushing against the currents. Once the fish reached the end of the river, they encountered the intensity of a great waterfall. Sensing the difficulty and danger ahead, most turned back, choosing to swim downstream with the current. Others persisted. Legend states that these koi kept swimming against the waterfall for 100 years. Eventually, one koi was able to leap to the top of the waterfall. As a reward, the gods transformed it into a dragon. This signifies the attainment of an extraordinary and rare success. The falls are the dragon's gate, the alchemical point where the strength and determination to persevere will attract divine blessings of remarkable grace, providing transformation and triumph over all odds. Koi attracts the divine blessing to become a heavenly dragon through courage, endurance, will, and exertion. These are the qualities of the shamanic soul. Perseverance distinguishes the initiate from the novice and allows the soul to become empowered rather than undermined by the challenges faced on the spiritual path. Although you may wonder if you have what it takes, the oracle foretells of truly tremendous accomplishments if you make the choice to continue with your quests. It talks about adaptability. Love strengthens the soul and is the antidote to fatigue and fear. Be inspired and motivated by love, and you will stay the course where others may turn back out of fear. Potential paradigm shift, spiritual rebirth into a different cycle of your life. And then, there's an octopus here as well. And it says, the 8 arms of the octopus symbolize the abundance and prosperity of the divine feminine and your soul's ability to receive it. Give yourself permission to receive love and beauty. This will protect you from the fearful workings of the mind, perhaps born of fatigue or the degree of endurance that you've had to summon thus far in your path. Connect with the beauty of earth, receiving light. Notice it happening when the sunlight rests upon the trees, water, or your skin. Notice the rainbow reflections as light moves through crystal and glass. The beauty of light can refresh your spirit with the compelling reminder of why you are on this path and what you are in the process of manifesting through your sacred work. When on a soul path of great spiritual ambition, temper the exertions required and the rewards that flow in response. Take delight in your life, for it is truly a radiant path that you are creating. I feel like there's a clue there for what your card was, but unless it was some kind of plant, which isn't part of that deck, I don't remember. It was something, there was a theme though of the light coming through. Oh, I wish I could remember what it was. A part of me thought it might be the lion, but I used the lion in 2 other readings, so I just cannot recall. And I would probably have noticed such a dramatic difference between the lion and the earthworm. Oh, it's going to bother me until I remember it. But anyway, if I do remember it, then you'll have 3 cards rather than just 2. Okay, and then, so I'm going to jump over to the Cicada Christ. And so previously I sort of did your cards and then I did your person's card in the other 2 readings. But there's so many parallels, and I'll bring it together in the end, but I just want to jump over. So this card talks about endurance, so does this one. So it's suggesting that this is meant to be an energy check-in, I should have said. So if you're recognizing these energies as the ones that you and your person are in, or that the connection is in, then you're in the right place, and then the tarot cards will apply to your situation. And as always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Okay, so the Cicada Christ. Prosaic ambitions will not satisfy you. So this is talking about your person. Will not satisfy your person. Your person's heart is capable of grander visions worthy of their soul. Such magnificent manifestation requires complete transformation as spiritual fuel for actualization. The worthy soul vision awakens such yearning in your person's heart that they will be willing to overcome all obstacles, all fears, all doubts in order to live it. Their courage attracts divine assistance to protect the path and reveal the way. Their path is assured, and they do not have to be afraid. Timing of all things is divine. Even delays are on their side. At an advanced point on the path, the soul will confront its own breaking point in its capacity to trust. It will evoke situations and circumstances to bring light to the places where it attempts to wrest control away from the divine will. It will seek to make conscious, and I'll just add in that If you are an atheist sort, you can interpret, one thing that in Kundalini Yoga they used to say is, if the word God is triggering for you, you can interpret that as good, orderly direction. You know, there is definitely a theism still packed into that phrase, but essentially just think of it as, I mean, you wouldn't be here if you didn't have some sense of spirituality, I think. And so think of it as, you know, flow, the universe, you know, support from perhaps spirit guides or beyond. And, okay. So the soul will seek to make conscious the ways and reasons that it rebels against its own destiny and fulfillment. It will seek out the hidden terrors and secret yearnings and bring both into awareness. The need for searing inner inquiry stirs when a great spiritual leap is imminent, like a leap from koi into dragon up a waterfall. But we're talking about this card right now. And the soul must be made ready. So when that leap is imminent, the soul needs to become ready, and it's like the soul gravitates towards these intense questions of inner inquiry. Sometimes the most soul-affirming divine grace is concealed within challenge. Only a profoundly open heart will have sufficient courage to receive hidden grace and labor through its demanding initiation in order to obtain its heavily guarded treasure. And so the soul sets to work on itself to purify and prepare, becoming strong in faith. And so again, we're talking about your connection. And so my interpretation is that there has been some challenge, perhaps very intense challenge in the connection between you and your person. And there is a call for endurance, persistence, and pulling through the spiritual gifts of that challenge. And so that's not to say that those gifts might be for the benefit of your relationship. Those gifts might be for the benefit of each of you personally, in relationship, perhaps out of relationship. That's all for you to decide. Of course, tarot reading, you know, does not preempt your free will. But whatever the case, it seems like there's very, very strong transformational energy in this pile, as there has been through the whole reading, but I feel like it's almost culminating with the Dragon's Gate and the Cicada Christ. I'm just going to see if I can pull out sentences that are relevant so we're not reading pages and pages. This understanding triggers the alchemical acceptance that disarms superficial, half-hearted attempts at change and fuels the irreversible alchemy of genuine transformation. During such a process, one will feel tested beyond all limits. This is a hallmark of initiation. To know that there is spiritual protection for resurrection, that rebirth is assured, is important. The soul will feel tested to confront its doubt and fear. And so what I was going to say is, rather than this being a process of your person, you know, maybe they're going through an intense personal transformation and a spiritual reawakening, but I'm interpreting this as there is a process of transformation within the relationship that's, you know, that potential is within this connection. And your person might be testing. They might be testing the connection. They might be testing you. They might be testing themselves. You know, there's like a process of sort of testing and wanting to get down to the essence of, like there's a faith that they're coming around to if they're doing the work. And so, but that faith is going to be a very, very hard one. It's, you know, possibly the most difficult thing that they've done in their life to date is having the faith even when there are challenges. I feel like I'm not saying that in any way as gracefully as it is laid out here, but yeah, so I'm seeing when it's talking about you know, the sort of treasure that's hidden within the challenge, I'm seeing that as the treasure is connection with you. And it's hidden within the challenge, and your person has to confront their fears. And in the same way that it was talking about in this card, choose love over fear. And for your person, for you, it's sort of like that's part, like there's a perception of light that was coming through with all of these cards. And letting that light through is part of your task. For your person, their task is to have faith despite not seeing that light in the stage of the process in which they appear to be based on all of these cards together. So they will come out, they will come through and come to that light. But their challenge right now is to hold on to that light, hold on to the belief, the faith in the connection, despite not seeing it right at this time, because they're buried. So we're going to get there. I'm jumping ahead here. I just want to see if there's anything else from this description to pull through. The initiate gains protection beneath the wings of love. Although there may be great work to accomplish and seemingly inordinate obstacles to overcome, the soul that has committed itself entirely to love's guardianship can never be harmed or tamed again. If your person is going through a deep challenge, perhaps something that has continued for a long time, or maybe the connection has, be reassured, they should be reassured that they are cared for very deeply, and what may feel like a spiritual abandonment at this time will eventually be recognized as the seeding of their spiritual triumph. The divine ones are with them, waiting for them to vouch for themselves, to affirm their innate dignity, and to decide that they will support themselves from that place within, rather than allowing themselves to be affirmed or denied by voices around them. So there's something there of your person needs to find their own inner strength and not be sort of throwing themselves under the bus for the sake of, peer pressure or the voices around them. Maybe they've got friends or family who have had something to say about the connection. There's a testing that's happening, and your person's task is to go into their own faith in respect of the connection, despite whatever is happening around them, whatever is challenging that faith. Fulfillment of their divine destiny will have an unmistakable outer effect, but the actual process of attainment is spiritually intimate, occurring between your person and the divine realm of spirit. And then cicada is a shamanic totem that facilitates the Christ awakening in our own hearts. Okay, and so this is the part where, I was raised by heathens, I was raised by a rainbow village. And actually, it's that rainbow village that makes me believe that everything happens for a reason. And so I believe that, this reshuffle of the cards and, the tech issues and the, whoa, Nelly, you want to talk about endurance? Recording this reading has been an act of endurance. And, I almost feel like I'm being spiritually tested just by trying to get it done. And there have definitely been times where I was like, maybe Spirit just doesn't want this to be recorded. Maybe it's not meant to be out there. But there's just a very stubborn, again, it's that Scorpio part of me that's like, no, I need to go back and I need to figure out. And then when I started remembering the cards, I was like, oh yeah, I know what most of these cards are. I know what the message was over here especially. And, maybe there's a bit of a reshuffle in the message on this side. And I trust that that's happening for divine reason. So, okay, where were we? So cicada is a shamanic, and sorry, that ramble was meant to say, I don't know anything about Christ other than what's in popular culture. So if you have expertise in that subject, by all means, you can inflect this with your own knowledge. I do like that this description goes beyond, this is talking about the Christ archetype and not necessarily, the Christian notion of Christ or the historical figure. And she refers to the divine ones. So I gather we're firmly in the territory of archetypes and not of Christianity. And that archetypal territory is much more comfortable for me than the territory of Christianity, but for you, maybe there's an amalgam of both, or maybe you're more comfortable in the Christianity side of things. Whatever, it's all welcome. Provided there's kindness and compassion for all. That is the space that I hold. Okay, so. Facilitates the Christ awakening in our hearts to empower our willingness to rise up to our unique life path and higher calling according to a greater divine will, process, and timing. Cicada lives underground for the majority of its existence, preparing for emergence. The magnificence and courage of cicada is the willingness to labor extensively for necessary preparation. It is the genius of endurance and readying oneself, rather than rushing to the opportunity only to find oneself unprepared and unable to receive it. The work of preparation takes you deep within, And then she talks about Mataji, a divine, feminine, enlightened being from the traditions of India, is said to reside deep within the earth, meditating in perfect bliss, shining her warm and nourishing light, so that all creatures, even those who are deeply cocooned in a period of introspective, initiatory, shamanic burial, can know the warmth of love. And I just have to interject and say that reading that out, I don't often have this flashback when I hear the word cocoon, but there's something about me stumbling over that word that just brought back images of being probably 9 years old, maybe 10 or 11, and watching the movie Cocoon from the 80s. And I just had this image of swimming pools, cocoons in swimming pools. I don't even know if that's factually accurate, but have you seen the movie Cocoon? Maybe there's something in there for you. I don't know. Just if that is relevant for somebody watching this. But it's also kind of it was a movie that I found quite scary, I think, the first time I watched it, and then we watched it again because my parent persuaded me that it was not actually scary, and we got sort of beyond the part that had scared me the first time. And it was actually such an entrancing, fascinating movie. I do not remember anything about that movie beyond cocoons in a swimming pool, except that it felt like special or interesting in a kind of resonant way. All right, moving on. Okay, so Mataji's nourishing warmth and spiritual mastery remind the soul of the reason and purpose for relentless spiritual testing. And I keep coming, when I'm reading this part in the reading multiple times now, I keep coming to the fact that we're on page 222, which is, of course, the 2 is the number of divine counterparts joining two-ness. Okay, and for relentless spiritual testing, leading to the symbolic shamanic death. So she nourishes because there's a spiritual testing period that is leading to the symbolic death. And of course that is, the Christ narrative is the story of the death of the ego, being reborn into spiritual awareness, being, letting go of everything that one thought one knew about oneself or that one was in the world in order to become this spiritually, let's say, more enlightened. I won't say fully enlightened, but, in some cases, maybe full enlightenment applies. But so in any event, that spiritual testing is meant to break down the ego and bring us around to a place where we can embrace more compassion, more love, more understanding of others around us and of ourselves, first and foremost. When nothing seems to be happening, so during that buried time, and we may feel buried under mountains of seemingly unconquerable obstacles, unable to assert the path that one feels innately and divinely compelled to express, Mataji and Cicada assert that this is part of the process and emergence will take place. So your person must give themselves the gift of believing in their own transformation. They don't need to know what it will look like. They may be unrecognizable coming into the reemergence, but the world will catch up. Life will not always be this difficult, but while they're in the process, they need to give to it all that they have within them. Believe in themselves, believe in the beauty of the magnificent new life destined to take form, and glorious ascension will be the definitive outcome. Okay, so moving over to the Rooted Women deck. So we've got Forest Path. And I'm going to read this out and I'm going to read that out because, again, they tie in so well with the other cards. Okay, so Forest, finding the path. The forests of northern European fairy tales are dark, dangerous places, abundant with disconcerting shadows and populated by tightly packed trees. They represent a world beyond the village, the community, an other world, steeped in myth and magic, which lies outside of normal human experience. Usually, the Darkwood is the home of witches and monsters, personifying all the fears of the collective unconscious. When you enter the forest, you're accepting the inevitability of transformation. Something is going to change. Something may be lost, but something, if you embark on the journey with a true heart and a willingness to learn, will always be gained. This card invites you to trust in the bone-deep alchemy of metamorphosis and to take the plunge into the unknown. Once you find yourself, can you see that rainbow? Once you find yourself caught up in the formidable entanglements of the forest, it's not always clear. especially when choices have to be made, which path you should take. Often, it's the overgrown one, the one which looks to be the darkest, the least promising, which will lead you to what you're looking for. And sometimes, there's no obvious path at all, and you're forced to forge your own way through the trees. Even in the loneliest of forests, though, there are allies and helpers to be found if you're paying attention. But be sure to look closely and don't jump to the obvious conclusions. A wolf isn't always going to eat you, and the old woman carrying her basket of berries isn't always a witch. Side note, if she is a witch, she might be there to help you. Treasure the tiniest traces of light, because even in the darkest forest, there's hope to be found. So, a message of looking for the light came up with this card, and it's coming up again with this card. Moving over to the buried moon. So that is very, very resonant with both the cicada Christ, with the idea of the cicada going underground, and with the earthworm over here as well. And I believe it even tied in with the calcification, but I'll come back to that. Okay, so the buried moon, the hidden feminine. So we're looking at this card for your person at this point. And the hidden feminine would be, again, regardless of gender. In a very old tale from the fens of eastern England, the moon decides to take a journey into the marshland and becomes trapped there by the dark things which inhabit it. She's buried in a black hole because the dark things are intent on destroying the power of the moon. They despise her light and want to extinguish it. The buried moon card represents the lost heart of the feminine, the heart which holds all the secrets of sustaining life. Hers is a story that countless people have experienced through all the long ages of our existence in patriarchal cultures, which are so afraid of female power that they've gone to extravagant lengths to suppress it, creating new stories to cover it up. The witch hunters who long ago buried the moon. But like the light of the moon, which still escapes through a slit between the stone that covers her and the marshy land that envelops her, our light can also shine through any cracks we can pry open. The light of those feminine qualities which have been buried so deeply inside us that we've forgotten they even exist, let alone where to find them. So at this stage of our journey, the moon is an ally who encourages us to go deeply back inside ourselves and search for the feminine mystery which has been suppressed over countless centuries. Women's ways of knowing and being, constantly waxing and waning, and associated not just with the menstrual cycles of the female body, and therefore with motherhood, but with the wider sphere of death and rebirth. So with that death and rebirth theme, we're coming back to the Christ part of this card, and with the buried moon, we're in the cicada part. So it's got that same, this has the same theme of transformation, you know, going on a journey that is going to inevitably result in metamorphosis, and, you know, that it might be dark, scary, bring up a lot of fears, but the message of this card is to not hold with those fears, but to persevere in the journey. So it's very similar to this. And similarly over here, there's an element of the light being buried. So that idea of being in the part of the journey where one can't see or sense the light. And so there is a bit of a call to your person to look for that, you know, that reflected light. But the idea is that their own light, or the light within this connection perhaps, is buried. So it's not fully visible to them, and it's sort of like a task to trust that it's there. I mean, if you can see it in a reflection, it's like you can't see it directly. You just have to have faith that there is an actual moon shining that reflection through. And so it might be that your person needs to get in touch with the feminine within themselves, with feminine mysteries, and again, regardless of their gender, with the feminine within themselves. But also the call to the feminine is this idea of cycles, of death and rebirth. So again, the transformation, the death that leads to the rebirth. So it's this very powerful, strong energy of transformation. I'm going to jump right to the earthworm, because I feel like we're in this buried theme, and so this card again sort of calls that together. So the earthworm is shy, hesitant, reluctant to share inner vision. When in balance, earnest, intelligent, and valuable. When out of balance, self-conscious or apprehensive. To bring into balance, speak up and risk embarrassment. So there's something here about, for your person, of like being willing to stand with their own truth. Maybe to stand with this connection. So there's something about like a self-consciousness about what other people think, or some kind of need to speak up for themselves, to speak up for the connection, to hold with their own inner truth, regardless of other people's perceptions or what other people are saying. You know, they need to be in that energy of being willing to risk the embarrassment and to shed that self-consciousness or apprehensiveness. Okay, so we have all felt the woes of the earthworm at some point along the way. The earthworm indicates a newbie or novice working to establish confidence in a new field. Others around you may seem wise and experienced. Others around your person may seem wise and experienced, but it's important for your person to remember that they once felt earthworm energy too. This card is a reminder for your person not to be intimidated or lose hope. Mastery takes time and they're on the right track. Besides, rumor has it, a beginner's mind offers the most valuable insights. So there's really this idea that, you know, maybe your person's not experienced with relationships, or with relationships that call up the depth that this relationship might be calling up for you both. And, you know, if there's an ego death happening for your person, I mean, that's deeply, deeply transformational work, and it's not something that one is prepared for until it comes, and it sucks, you know, like it is not fun to go through that. But, you know, that shedding of ego it's a necessary step to letting go of fears and being open to something that is bigger and more powerful, more potent, and more amazing and wonderful and magical than one thought possible. When, you know, like if you're looking at things from the sort of self-limiting beliefs of ego, then you're not seeing the full spectrum of what is possible for you. And so maybe your person has sort of been in those energies of like playing small or holding back, or just kind of letting other people's voices like hold them back. So, and then for you, so Gazelle was the card, one of the two cards that I sort of narrowed it down to, and I really didn't think it actually was Gazelle. The other one was Deer, and so if you feel a call to look into Deer, that might be, I don't think it was Deer either, but I really just cannot remember. So I apologize for that. I've mentioned like half a dozen things it could have been. And so I've been through the entire deck a couple of times. I pulled out, like as I went through and pulled the other cards and remembered the other cards, which I was so impressed with myself for remembering. And it was a journey, you know, it was like, first I remembered this one, and then I looked through and I remembered this one, and I had to sleuth and make sure I wasn't misremembering that one from another pile. And then I found this one and I was like, oh yeah. And then as soon as I found that one, I remembered this one, but I could not figure out which one it was for you. And once I found that one, I narrowed it down from a short list of cards to this one, and remembered that there was that bit about the light that was coming through on your side, and which ties in with this sugar card as well. And, but yeah, so like 2 or 3 times I went back to this deck and tried to figure this out, and did the same thing of making a short list a couple of times, and then was like, you know, I have to give it up to Spirit. Spirit has to choose the cards. So I reshuffled, and this is what came out, and it's quite resonant for me that the Gazelle was one of the 2 cards that I'd sort of narrowed it down to before I was, you know, fairly sure they weren't that, because this came out in the last reading I recorded, and I don't think I recall looking at it thinking that it hadn't come out before out of this new deck, this deck that is new to me. So, but in any event, it came out this time, and it came out with Hyena, which is a natural predator of the Gazelle, if I'm not mistaken. I might be getting my continents mixed up, but you know, I mean, this is the energy of a predator of ruminants, and then this is a ruminant. And are hyenas only in Australia, or are they in Africa? Gazelles are definitely all over the plains of Africa, and I think hyenas are too. Feeling kind of embarrassed for my lack of 5-year-old natural history. I'm sure my children could tell me in an instant. So in any event, we will have a look at these 2 together, and then I'll see if I can sort of bring them in. Sorry, I'm flipping through the book, wondering. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it could have been lamb, but lamb came up in one of the other piles, so I just feel like it could have been. Anyway, here we are, hyena and gazelle. Let's focus on the present moment. Okay, so for hyena, we've got humor, wit, sarcasm. When in balance, charming, witty, fun to be around. When out of balance, scrappy, petty, suspicious. To bring into balance, sobriety. So the hyena personality is a jokester and crowd pleaser, but below the surface, there are unfulfilled dreams to be realized. When the hyena card appears, it's time to reflect on your reliance on sarcasm and humor to express your truth. Are you using jokes to hide old resentments in relationships or to mask things that you feel uncomfortable discussing? What would happen if you took your goals seriously? And then with gazelle, oh yeah, and so they fell out together, if I didn't say that already. And ordinarily I would put them back and reshuffle, but when I flipped over the gazelle, I felt like that was meant to be, and then because they came out together, it seemed like they were meant to be together. Gazelle, heightened awareness and ability, vulnerable. The gazelle represents supreme grace. With every move, this awe-inspiring beauty emits sophistication and elegance. Gazelle personalities are often hyper-aware of their surroundings, bordering on hypervigilant, and this can inhibit them from enjoying the beauty they've spent so much effort cultivating. No more worrying about all those predators out there in the wild. When this card appears, it's time to get back to the present moment. Sit down, find your breath, and acknowledge the bounty that surrounds you. Let it nourish your gentle spirit. And when in balance, graceful, perceptive, artistic. When out of balance, food allergies, insomnia, racing mind. To bring into balance, yin yoga, a cozy home, and good food. So all in all, you've got sobriety, yin yoga, a cozy home, and good food as your advice for bringing these two into balance. And so, yeah, we've got hyena with a sort of self-protectiveness and gazelle with this vulnerability and a hypervigilance, and that sort of pulls them out of the present moment. And so, if you're walking a forest path, these, we can see that there's a creature here that, I'm sure it's intended to be a wolf, but it could be a hyena. It's got similar characteristics to a hyena. And it's sort of like what you encounter on that forest path is the archetypes within you. And so maybe you've got both these two sides to you. Maybe, there's a transformation happening from hyena to gazelle. They did fall out in this order. And, maybe being aware of your tendency to maybe even just mask more generally. It doesn't necessarily have to be about using sarcasm or humor to mask, but if you're sort of masking your feelings or your actual desires within the connection, that might be a call to meditate on that a little bit and be sort of more in the present focus. I mean, maybe there's an element where you're masking because you're being hypervigilant. Maybe you're expecting the other shoe to fall, or, sort of, again, self-limiting beliefs, coming back to self-limiting beliefs. So, and this one really speaks to me of playing small, and maybe even the gazelle was sort of failing to be focused on the present. So bring it back to the present moment, focus on what your goals actually are. Like, what do you actually want to be the outcome with the person in your heart? What is it that you actually, maybe sit down and journal out what exactly it is that you're wanting to manifest with this person. And, if you're at the very beginning stages, maybe that's just having a connection, period. If you're further along in a relationship, maybe there's, things that you wish to experience with this person throughout your lifetime that maybe you want to just jot out on paper. And, or what is it that you want out of a partner? Out of a connection with somebody, out of a relationship, if that's what you're going for. Notice that I always say connection and not relationship, because there can be all kinds of different connections. And relationships are, I mean, I think we're in relationship with people from the moment that we encounter them. But what kind of relationship you have with somebody, in my opinion, has to be defined along the way. And so one of the first steps to doing that is to do that inner work of sitting down and figuring out what you want. And then, you know, does this connection live up to that, or can it be transformed into that if you each are doing your separate work? And so that brings us to sugar. So I'm just noticing in this book that sugar comes after glass. And the message of glass is, you know, to make sure that you're maintaining spiritual integrity and sort of keeping your glass clean so you can see clearly. And before smoke. And smoke would be, you know, when your glass is totally unclear. So that's an interesting placement. In any event, sugar refers to sacred sweetness, pleasure, attraction. It says, sugar reminds us of our longing for simple pleasures. Once upon a time, this longing for sweetness was fulfilled by raw honey offered by the bees, which had many medicinal properties and was known in alchemy as a sacred elixir. Now, most of our sources of sweetness, both literally and metaphorically, are highly processed, defined for us by a culture of consumption. This card is a call to explore the simple sweetness in life. Can you add tenderness to your alchemical experiment? How about joy, or even laughter? It is likely the pleasure you crave will not be found from manufactured means, but from the childlike wonder residing in the heart. Remember the alchemical wisdom of like attracts like. So that might be, given what I was just saying about sitting down and sort of getting clear on what you're looking for, maybe the message here is like attracts like. So maybe you need to be more in the energies of what it is you're looking for, or, you know, what would be in harmonic resonance with those, with what you're looking for. Go deeper. Listen to Nina Simone performing the song, "A Little Sugar in My Bowl." That is a beautiful song. One of sugar's physical attributes is stickiness. See how this concept affects the cards within the reading and the personalities involved. Attachment rarely serves. So stickiness definitely brings us over to calcification. Stickiness would be the energies of being pulled out of the present moment by fears or, you know, that hypervigilance. Stickiness could have to do with, you know, feeling like you need to protect yourself by being witty or sarcastic. Yeah. But stickiness is not going to bind something to you that is buried under the earth. So in any event, meditating on attachment might be productive for you. It says to ponder the power of attraction and aversion. So that's Vipassana, that comes out of Vipassana meditation. So what you go towards, what you go away from, and those are the two sort of polarities, attraction and aversion. So that's actually a really powerful thing to sort of start to notice in yourself. So you just start to notice what you're attracted to, what you're drawn to, or what you go away from. You know, where you skate out, where you immediately go in the other direction. That can be a really powerful meditation. Calcification is very close in the book to some of the cards that came up, I believe, in pile 2. We've got coagulation, and then there was separation somewhere in there. I believe that was pile 2. Okay, so calcification, heat, fire, desire. Calcinatio is the great alchemical operation of fire. It occurs when there is enough heat in the vessel to transform the nature of that which is solid or fixed. How does calcinatio begin? With a tiny glimmer, an urge, a desire that builds into a robust flame. On a psychic level, the stage may be an uprising of emotion that has been repressed or dismissed. It wants something big to change, to be brought to the light and purified. Perhaps a flawed ideology, institution, or outlook. Within the connection, I'd say perhaps the framing of the connection, or, you know, how maybe your person has been seeing you in the past, or how they've been sort of, again, back to self-limiting beliefs, how they've been framing this situation to themselves. So it might be that they want to bring that to the light and have it be purified. Frustration and anger are wondrous change makers if their heat is channeled with space, time, and awareness. The transformation that occurs from calcinatio is rarely harmonious. It requires commitment and a willingness to sit through discomfort as old patterns fall into the ashes. The flame initiates sacred change, and eventually the phoenix rises. Contemplate Lao Tzu's teaching, the flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long, to ponder the color of fire. The divine flame resides within, and it is yours to tend to. Doing so patiently and with support will lead to change that is holy rather than hasty. So here again, so we've got this, sort of percolating energy with these cards, and a very strong message not to rush things. So your person might still be in this buried stage. They might still be in the sort of the part of the journey where that longing is building. There is a spark, and it may be the spark of their attraction to you, and that might be that alchemical flame that catalyzes the transformation, catalyzes them to come up from the earth into the new self, into the to undergo the challenges of the transformation, or the alchemical journey, the ego death, perhaps, whatever it is that is transforming for them. It's a transformation at the most fundamental, deepest levels. And if they're sort of like buried down in the earth, there's something that prompts that cicada to start coming up out of the earth. There's something that has to bring that process up to the light. And it might be just the barest glimmer of the light over here. And so there's such a strong message over here of like, while you're going through this transformative process and allowing it to transform you, allowing yourself to metamorphosize, be aware of the light, look for the light, find those glimmers, even if it's feeling difficult, look for the sweetness in this process. And so maybe if you're doing that, maybe your person is sort of, maybe that's where the stickiness is coming in. Maybe they're being drawn to that sweetness. And that's what catalyzes them into transformation. So again, the keywords for this were heat, fire, desire, which is very wands. It's like the element of wands. An uprising of emotion that has been repressed or dismissed, which wants something big to change, to be brought to the light and purified. A glimmer, a tiny glimmer, an urge, a desire that builds into a robust flame. Okay, so pile 3, we're going to switch over to the tarot. So again, the only part of the reading that recorded, or that, managed to keep its recording, is the part where the cards are laid down. And so I'm just going to go through and lay them all out. And so when I meet you back after the part where I'm in the video shuffling them, they'll all be laid out, and then we'll get to the interpretation. So we're using the Herb Crafter's Tarot, which is a really beautiful deck in that it refers to herbs for each card of the deck, of the tarot deck. And the references to herbs, it's almost like there's a built-in advice insofar as you can work with those herbs, whether literally in some cases, but also metaphorically, working with the archetypes of the herbs, tapping into the herbal essence of each of the herbs. So whether or not you have access to the physical herb, whether or not the physical herb is something that, in some cases they're not okay to ingest, but you can still work with that archetype. And I've been finding that very interesting in terms of reversals. So the guidebook for these doesn't give reverse meanings, but working with the sort of polarities of the upright and reverse meanings of the cards. What you then want is some kind of action you can take to address any energies that are out of balance, whether upright or reverse. So it's been quite interesting working with this deck for that. It's just dawning on me that maybe the energies, like there's been intense energies of transformation coming up in all of the readings for this topic, and I suppose I set the stage for that. But it's dawning on me that perhaps it's the energy that I am channeling as I'm doing the readings that is taking it out of me. So just a reminder for you, for me, to hydrate after this process and, rest. Be aware of your somatic responses to the reading and give your body that rest and nourishment. Look for the sweetness, as the Oracle energy check reminded us. Okay, so we're going to pull out some tarot. So this is how to best support this process of transformation and turn the challenges into the rewards. We've got the Hee-Ho of Air, which is the Page of Swords with catnip. There's a cute little cat, kind of almost looks not that cute in this picture because it's prone on the ground, looking not entirely lifey, but I think it's just taking a nap in the nip of the cat. Okay, can we have cards for group 3, pile 3, the transformation of pile 3? We've got the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, which is creosote. How to best support transformational energies for pile 3. We've got 8 strength garlic with a sort of mouth-watering bit of honeycomb there as well. I've given up honey due to veganism, due to a greater commitment to veganism. But it is definitely the one thing that I miss. We have the World Pachamama in reverse. We'll get one more card and then we'll get some clarifiers. Something flipped over there. We've got 7 of Earth, 7 of Pentacles with Oak. Can we get a clarifier for the Hee-Ho of Air, please? We've got the Chariot with Cedar. Clarifier for the Madre of Earth in reverse. We have the Hierophant with Cacao. Well, that's a cool Hierophant. Clarifier for Strength with Garlic. We have 7 of Swords, 7 of Air with Eucalyptus. Clarifier for the World in reverse. We've got 5 of Wands with Black Cohosh, 5 of Fire. Clarifier for the 7 of Earth and Oak. We've got the High Priestess with Mugwort. Oh, I love that Mugwort is the High Priestess. Bottom of the deck, we've got the Empress in reverse with Rose. Okay, my friends, welcome to the interpretation portion of this event. So, yeah, I'm grateful that at least the shuffling out of the tarot cards was preserved. And, oh, I forgot to light the candle. Let's do that. All right. We're in business. Okay, so the Herb Crafter's Tarot brings forth this herbal lore that it pulls out, like most tarot decks, it sort of will pull out one particular aspect of the tarot card and kind of hone in on that. So I've been through all the descriptions again as a refresher, and I'm going to try and ad-lib a little bit, but there's just so many good words in the descriptions in the guidebooks that there is a little bit in each of the cards that I think I want to pull through. And so I'll see how much I feel that that's needed. We're gonna take our time and go slowly. And I think with the Hiha of Air catnip, so I don't know if you can see the little kitty cat here. I dare not pick up the cards because they're so not straight from my perspective, and I worked hard to make them straight from yours. But anyway, there's a little cat head here and some cat paws poking out here. And this card refers to play, essentially. So it would be the the Page of Swords. So the Hiha of Air is the Page of Swords. Probably not at all saying Hiya. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I do not speak Spanish. I assume this is Spanish. I don't even know that much Spanish. I know that madre means mother in Spanish. I'm from Canada. We don't have a lot of Spanish. I mean, that's not true. There's lots of Spanish around, and I have actually studied Spanish, and I should know how to pronounce that word, but alas, I do not. Okay, it's like there's only room for a certain number of non-English languages in my brain. Fun fact, I lived in Sweden for a year, and that's where I learned that pretty much everyone in Europe speaks 6 or 7 languages, and that's not considered weird or amazing. It's just what you need to talk to your neighbors, and so I've studied a few languages, but I wouldn't say that I could speak them, sort of reliably by any means. But I can read Spanish, from knowing French so well. But anyway. Yes, okay. So there's a message here to return to beginner's mind, to play, come to subjects with the curiosity of a beginner, and just as catnip settles emotions with its refreshing medicine, she sets her feelings aside, the Hiha in this card. She sets her feelings aside and communicates her observations and questions clearly. And she's sort of playing with the cat, like she's sort of tempting the cat with a sprig of catnip here. And and then the Chariot is about essentially the vessel that, here, I'll just read it out. It's more articulate than I could be. So, move forward with confidence, be disciplined yet flexible, embody the journey. Says a mandala lies on the dark forest floor. A cedar branch, stripped of its needles, forms the shape of roots, etc., etc. I'll skip ahead here. Life is a forward-moving gift. Embark on a deeper quest. Learn from ancient wisdom and forge a new path. Cedar is both a sacred vessel used in sacred ceremony, both a spiritual vessel used in sacred ceremony, and a literal vessel when it is used for making canoes. And so be determined and opportunistic. Travel between the worlds of heaven and earth. Bring the knowledge of spirit and soul into the body, just as the cedar trunk contains the stories of the earth. Have faith in the experience. It is not the triumph, but the journey that leads to mastery. So this Chariot card is calling out the journey. So it's referring specifically to the journey. And I'm just noticing that the spaces here they almost look like petals. They almost look like rose petals, which is interesting because we're going to talk about roses. They come through a few times here. And then that would be like a very floppy open rose. But anyway, so the cedar here is the craft. It sort of goes between worlds. And so we're back at that, the forest card in the oracles that was in the same spot actually, of being like sort of bringing things through from the other world, bringing things through from the underworld, and bringing like intuitive knowledge through to support your play, and focusing more on the journey rather than the destination. So you might have been, it's possible that both of you potentially, but there might be a sense in which the connection has been maybe too serious, maybe that you've been sort of bogged down in analytical details or analyzing or overanalyzing. And so there's a call to play here. And again, your oracle cards had a lot to do with bringing forth the light, looking for the light, creating spaces for the light to come through within this journey. And so with the Chariot, I see it's almost like a call to move towards, enthusiastically move towards a spirit of play and of kind of dampening down emotions, bringing in some reason, but also like perspective, I guess, but also maybe to go between. So maybe hold on to the emotional knowledge and, that sort of intuitive knowing, while also going back and forth between sort of the lighthearted spirit of play, where emotions maybe are not quite as watery, and between that and having, being rooted in that knowledge of self's desires, what you are looking to get out of this connection, where you do want to take it. And being able to sort of travel between those and recognizing that the mode of travel is itself the essence. Like, that is the journey. That is where your focus should be, is on that being able to travel between. So it's not that you're trying to get to a destination, it's the travel itself that is important. We've got the Madre of Earth with creosote bush being the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. So we'll talk about the reversal, but I'm just going to read out, it's almost like the antidote to the reversal is in these cards, because they talk about how to work with the substances, the herbs that are named, the plants that are named. So be a guardian of the wild places, build circles, share medicine. A woman travels into the canyon. She has large dancing rock towers before her, and she raises a clay bowl full of creosote flowers to the sun and sings a song of gratitude. So the Madre of Earth provides for herself and her community. She creates many remedies, just like creosote. She honors the land as she gathers medicine. She's in good health, and she inspires others to do the same with grounded daily rituals. And she's considered a survivor. She's a true guardian of the place, the mother of all plants, knows how to enhance the lives of generations beyond her lifetime. She supports the people, the animals, the plants, the land, essentially. Embrace your quiet nature. It is the foundation of grace. So for crafting with creosote, we've got empower future generations, lead a medicine walk in your community, crafting with the Madre of Earth, I should say. Protect wild spaces, make an offering to the land in the form of a mandala, and share medicine. So for example, make a creosote salve and give it away to others. And so the Queen of Pentacles in reverse does refer to being out of touch with the energies of the suit, being grounding, longevity. So it might be that there's a question mark in whether the relationship is meant to have sort of a long-term foundation. And there might be questions about the worth of the connection between you. There might be there might be insecurities. Again, there might be like a little too much, you might be a little too much in the mental realms. And so for working with that, there's the suggestions coming through from creosote itself, but there's also, it's modified by the Hierophant, which is represented in this deck by cacao. And so the description of cacao is quite beautiful here. And the Hierophant, of course, it's pretty much the opposite of the Mother of Earth, the Madre of Earth upside down, insofar as, oh, there's roses here too. Oh, look at that. Okay, and wild roses. So there's, the Hierophant traditional meaning is about commitment and long-term relationships, in the sense of it refers to ceremony, and that's often what transitions a relationship from a connection into like a marriage or a long-term commitment. And so it is that ritual, the ceremony, that creates of a connection something that is witnessed before a community. That's where you sort of stand up and say, I want the community to recognize that I have a strong connection with this person, and I want the community to support that connection. This is my choice. This is, what I like. That's when you stand up and be counted as a pair of humans, or if not, potentially more humans. I just had an inspiration for future readings from that. Anyway, because why? Okay, I'll just pause there. We'll keep that. We'll high priestess that information for now. Okay, so it describes the scene here, and then it says, the secrets of the sacred are available to all. Learn them, teach them. Drinking pure cacao is an ancient practice that leads to greater perceptive awareness by opening the heart. Commercial chocolate is cacao stripped of its beneficial properties, cloaked in delicious yet harmful ingredients. Only true cacao can open the capillaries and increase blood flow. Spiritual teaching must speak authentically to reach the heart, but some things must be revealed slowly. As too much cacao can cause the pulse to quicken, learning too much too fast can overwhelm. Have patience with the pace of the divine. Remain devoted to mystery, yet have respect for ceremony. And for crafting with the Hierophant, we've got create or participate in a cacao ceremony, listen for an epiphany. Enjoy true chocolate, find an ethical source of whole cacao beans, dip them in vanilla honey, and then learn about heart intelligence or emotional intelligence. And so on that note of dipping cacao beans in vanilla honey, we go over to garlic, where we've got garlic cloves steeping in a pot of honey. And also in the garlic card, we've got a honeycomb, and we've got these rose petals all around. And then I'm going to jump us over to the Empress card, which is all about rose. We've got Empress in reverse as the bottom of the deck energy. And so there's a honeycomb here too. And then of course the rest of it is about rose. And I'm going to read that out, and we're going to stitch this all together. And there's also rose here in the High Priestess. So, but getting back to this, so I take the meaning of this to be sort of like in order to ground the connection between you, there might be some kind of ceremony needed. There might be, maybe there is a ceremony, standing before friends and family that would ground the connection, that would bring it into, these longer term energies. If that's, like if you're at an earlier stage of the relationship than that, then where that would be appropriate, given the connection that you have with each other. Or if you're in separation or something like that, maybe there is some ritual that maybe you want to do on your own to support. And I'm not talking about casting a spell on your person and, overpowering their will. Absolutely not. Don't do that. That's a bad idea karmically. But there might be, like if you can do spells that encourage what is already there to come forward more quickly, for example. You can also work with, your own epiphanies, see what's coming up for you in meditation, in ceremony, in ritual. Maybe you engage in some rituals yourself, or with a community of, healing people, healers, amongst healers. Maybe you craft a ritual and invite other people into it. And, anything that you're doing that's ceremonial or focused on ritual, or just kind of being aware of bringing reverence to, maybe longevity is not something that you or your person, or, within the connection between you, maybe that hasn't come up as something that you want to pursue with each other. And, maybe there's some kind of formal, sit down even, like a conversation can be a ritual. As a wise person said to me recently, words are spells. And so, maybe if you're getting clear, if you're doing this work of getting clear on what you want, maybe you're getting clear on what you want from your person, and you sit down and invite them into a ritual conversation with you. It can be a ritual, only from your side. They don't necessarily need to be aware that you're thinking of it that way. But maybe together you sit down and, sort of set the space, create an altar, create maybe rose, honey, garlic, cacao. Maybe these are things, maybe some of the other herbs that are here, maybe those are things that you bring into your space to kind of set maybe an oak leaf, to set the stage for having a conversation with your person. That's a really beautiful suggestion. Not something that came out in this reading the first time around. But like basically bringing some kind of seriousness and acknowledgement, like almost by ritualizing what you want from the connection, taking it more seriously, sort of grounding it into reality, like doing some kind of ritual grounding of the connection by speaking your intentions clearly, for example, speaking your desires clearly, something like that. Or, just doing some other kind of ritual sort of in another area of your life that maybe gets you inspired in thinking about, rituals, setting the stage. What is that called in... Yeah, so I'm thinking of harm reduction. So there's setting, and can't remember the third thing. But anyway, there's that's my dog dreaming in the background. I hope he's having lots of fun grapple playing with other dogs in his dreams. Okay, and then we're going to jump over to garlic with strength. Strength here is paired with, and I do want to talk about everything in this card, it's paired with eucalyptus, which is the 7 of air. There's like some distillation stuff happening here. But the 7 of air is the 7 of swords. The 7 of swords traditionally is very sneaky energy. It's sort of like trying to get away with something, stealing the swords and like running away with them. And so I did actually kind of struggle with putting these together in the like draft 1 of this reading. And but what I came to was talking a lot about this honey, this garlic steeped honey. When I was going back over, it was occurring to me, you probably don't need the narrative. I do apologize for the sort of, side note, my mother always thought I was a bit autistic and is now diagnosed autistic themselves. So bear with me as I recount every single detail of my thought process. Okay, what I was seeing most recently, and I do want to get into the descriptions of these, but how they might go together is that there's a strength here with the garlic, of course, and it's almost like maybe there is a minimizing. This kind of goes with this. There might be like a minimizing of the strength of your feelings, and I would almost say because it's right smack in the middle, and I, for whatever reason, chose to do a 5-card layout and then get clarifiers on the bottom for this reading. I guess because these cards are so small, it's easy to fit them. Anyway, it's right in the middle. It's like the fulcrum of your energies and your person's energies. So I would say there might even be something to this. I'm really getting a very strong feeling that there's like a minimizing of the strength of the connection, or a strength of your feelings for each other. Or maybe, maybe there's like a 3D kind of dance around each other that's happening that, but like a very, very strong feeling of like a spiritual connection between you, like something, far deeper and more transformative than maybe either of you feels comfortable giving voice to at the present stage. Or if you are in a full-on relationship with this person, maybe there's like a strength of feeling about, wanting to advance it to the next level, that maybe is sort of getting short shrift in the connection right now. If you're in separation, then, you're probably keeping your feelings quite under wraps. If you still have feelings, if they still have feelings, there's probably not much communication about that, but it sort of looks like there's this like percolating, with the garlic steeping in the honey, like that's going to need to steep for a little while. And we're already getting sort of divine timing messages coming through, and there's more to come. A lot more. There's so much patience called for. But yeah, anyway, so let's get into the description of the cards, and maybe more will come out. So I'm going to read out the description of the scene here because every piece of it feels important for this reading. So it says, lead with a bold, kind heart, gentle healing. Again, this is strength with garlic. Gentle healing builds resilience. Power sweetened is strength unmatched. A braided a braided cluster of purple garlic rests on a cloth made of natural fibers. Roses from a nearby vase begin to dry and petals have fallen on the table. Golden liquid seeps from a heart-shaped honeycomb onto a wooden board. And we have another heart-shaped honeycomb over here. Green scapes fold into their lemniscate shape, surrounding a pot of garlic cloves submerged in honey. And so the lemniscate is one of the big words that I learned from my very first tarot deck when I was 14. It just means the figure 8. It means the infinity symbol. And garlic scapes grow naturally into that shape. And especially when you pick them and put them all together, they just have this, they're very hard to sort of pull apart. Like they just entangle because they're very strong. They're extremely, like garlic scapes are super, super strong. And they just kind of like, they go together, and they don't give the impression of being like, they're not like hard to pull apart. They're not, but they have this strength to them where they wind together and make these beautiful patterns. Courage dwells in the soft spirit. Meet adversity with inner fire. Garlic strengthens the heart and increases stamina. So we've got more messages about strengthening the heart. You have the power to persevere. Cultivate reliable habits that enhance vitality. So that's another message about cultivating daily habits. Planting garlic around the roots of roses strengthens the leaves, encouraging more flowers to bloom. Cooking with garlic daily boosts the immune system, protecting against illness. Drinking garlic tea heats up the body, igniting passion. Step into your power, but remember, a compassionate approach is powerful. Adding honey to garlic tames the medicine, making it more effective and palatable. Embrace both the gentle and the wild within. Okay, so the message here is, so garlic's quite strong, especially raw. And so the message is to temper that strength. So you're not diluting it, you're not taking away the strength, but you are steeping it in sweetness. And so with with sugar coming through here, the honey in this spread feels very, very important, critically important. So there's a very, very strong message to take the strength of, whether it's the strength of, this was referring a little bit to, if there's things that, okay, I'm going to slow down. There's 3 different things that are coming through. Okay, so 1, I'm overwhelmed by the strength of this reading. Okay, so 1, the strength, especially with garlic, can refer to passion. Okay, so garlic is, this passionate, like that's where the honey and the roses are coming in. And so there, if there's like a feeling that you have to temper that passion, I would say, maybe there's like, this is like a distillation process almost. It is a distillation process, but it's almost as if like the message is to temper the strength of, whether it's, okay, so the second one was anger. So passion can refer to anger. And so, it might be that there's a very strong feeling of like something is not right, something needs to be fixed. If that's coming through for you, that would be a very strong message to temper that message with sweetness. And so that's where I would say the distillation process should happen. But with the coming through as passion in like a, like I have passion for you, Mr. Cicada Christ kind of way, whatever gender your person is. I don't think the message is to quell that passion. I think the message is to communicate that passion. But I feel like, I guess there's different ways of communicating things. There's, very sort of blunt, overt ways of communication. And then there's ways that are, like run through, I'm doing a lemniscate, it's kind of unconsciously, run through, like where you've seeped your passion in honey and you're presenting it, again, like setting the stage, you're presenting it in this like, this modality of sweetness, like your catalyst for bringing forth that medicine to your person. The medicine of the strength of your passion is through the honey, through the sweetness, through tempering it, not tempering it, I don't want to say tempering it because that makes it sound like muting it is what is called for, and it might just be that I would never think that passion should be muted ever. I really don't. I think that's where everything goes wrong, is when we try and mute our passions. But that might just be me. But if you're here getting a reading from me, then maybe there's something to that message for you. So, I am all over the place. Okay, but the third... What was the third one? Yeah, not sure. Garlic, strength, passion, resilience, health. Drinking garlic tea heats up the body, igniting passion. Step into your power, but remember, a compassionate approach is powerful. Embrace both the gentle and the wild. Yeah, maybe there were just two meanings. Maybe it was... I think the other thing was just the perseverance, the message of perseverance that was coming through with the oracle reading in the beginning. So that perseverance might need to be sort of distilled and tempered. Like there might be a bit of a ripening. That's a good word for it. So it's like this garlic needs to be ripened within the honey. And of course the garlic is already ripe. So I don't mean literal ripening, but I mean like there's a ripening of the message. There's a ripening of whatever it is that you are feeling so strongly. There's a what do you call it when you steep things? Like this is distillation. That is, I used to do a lot of herb crafting when I was young. It's funny, they do say that when you find your path, it's like all the different things that you've learned in your life kind of come together and feed into it. And I've had that feeling with tarot. I don't know that I'm pretty non-committal. I'm not going to commit to saying that tarot is my path. You know, like I think I have a lot of paths, to be honest. But yeah, I've forgotten what the word is, but like the diffusion. And I learned that word not from herb crafting. I learned that word from that novel about the perfume serial killer from France of the 1900s, which I believe was called Perfume. It was black and it had like red, like the red sort of smoke of the, or, you know, mist of the perfume, the distillation process. That's where I learned about all that. So that's a random serial killer bit of darkness for your amusement. I have a bit of a dark sense of humor. I hope that I'm like flashing back to the hyena card and, you know, don't hide behind your wit and your sarcasm, child. Okay, I think we're going to move on. I'm getting a bit squirrely about the garlic card. Oh yeah, I did want to refer though to, so we've got the heart-shaped honeycomb, we've got the roses, we've got the honey, and the roses come through here, 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 and here. The honey comes through here, here, because of the reference to the vanilla honey, dipping the cacao beans in vanilla honey. Here. I think that is it. And yeah, and so it's like roses and honey are coming through this reading quite a lot. And so this is a good time to jump over to the Empress in reverse. So I'm going to read out this card because, again, working with the herbs is the way to write the reversal energies of the card. So with Rose, it says, be vulnerable yet strong. And I just have to editorialize and say that vulnerability is strength. In love, vulnerability is strength. It doesn't mean that you won't get your heart quashed, you know, but the thing is, if you're going to share your feelings with someone, you know, in those early stages, you may well be rejected. And if your person is a person of grace, they will bring you a beautiful rejection. There can be absolutely beautiful soul-affirming rejections that help you to grow as a person, that, you know, are almost preferable to your person not rejecting you. I had one most beautiful rejection that I will remember forever. I treasure it. And I mean, I did eventually turn that reversal around, and you know, we had a beautiful romance after that, but the rejection has stayed with me almost more than the romance, quite frankly. It was just a very graceful rejection. He was very straight up and said, you know, I'm not interested and here's the reason why. And it was just all very kindly delivered, very compassionate, and it was beautiful. And so anyway, point being, some people are jerks and will crush you if you open up to them. But there's nothing to be gained from denying feelings. So, and you don't know, like, you might be rejected in one of those two ways, or you might be accepted, and embark on the most amazing journey of your life that is well beyond what you could have imagined was possible in a connection with another person. And like, there are, so many different ways that things can go. And ultimately, if you don't share your gifts with other people, they're impoverished by that. So even if you share something with another person, even if they have a completely horrible, nasty, rejecting, bad rejecting response, and, they crush your heart, like, first of all, you will take something out of that experience that you will grow with. And hopefully it is not shutting down your heart. Hopefully it is like the recognition that your heart is beautiful, and you had so much strength in bringing that forward. And, and then if the other person has rejected you, that's on them. That's a reflection of their character. And maybe your lesson is maybe to refine who you're attracted to, right? And to sort of recognize earlier, like, who's going to be that graceful person for you versus that, and not to say that makes it sound like rejection is the only possibility, and that's not at all what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say there is a beauty and a grace and a reverence to bringing your heart forward to another person, that even if they completely reject you in a bad way, even if that really hurts, first of all, you will get some kind of gift out of that process. But second, I keep having it, and it keeps sort of skittering out of view as soon as I'm right there, ready to say it. That is what ADHD is in a nutshell, my friends. Okay, so I love that I keep, do I always do that? Do I just subconsciously make lemniscates with my finger all the time in my hands? Like, I've been going, do I dance my hands over the cards in lemniscates all of the time, or is it just for this reading? Now I'm going to be self-conscious about the hand dances that I do. Let's move on to roses, and if that little piece comes back, I will weave it back in somehow. Oh yes, be vulnerable yet strong. Nurture love and compassion. See beauty and abundance in every stage of life. Now I'm trying to bring it back. So it was about vulnerability being strength. That if you're, that when you deliver your gift to a person, if you bring forward the gift of your feelings, if you bring forward the gift of your words, or however you express that to them, even if there's somebody who, let's say they are in the public eye and they get a lot of attention all the time, or they're really gorgeous and, they have people hitting on them all the time, even so, what you bring to them is different than what every other person on this earth might bring to them. And I don't know why I'm feeling called to mention all this in this particular reading. Maybe it applies, maybe it resonates for some of you. In any event, the point is that, don't lose it. The point is that, so I have learned in my life, I can't even count how many times I'm a fairly direct person in romance. And, I learned that at some point along the way. And, and I've taken a lot of, it's like I've been herb crafting my affections for people. And so having lived as long as I have at this point, which is, 4 odd decades, not, a super long time, but enough to watch things come back around, lemniscate. And so having had conversations, 20, 25, 30 years later with people about how I maybe approached them or what I brought to them, in the initial stages of things, I have learned that even where I felt like I was being rejected, where I felt mortified, where I felt like I shouldn't have said anything, that information stayed with that person. And, maybe 20 years later, they came back around, or at the very least, they had the grace to express appreciation for that information, for how it was delivered, for the fact that I found them attractive, for, just, We all walk around with these deep, again, I don't know why I'm going off on a totally random tangent here, but not random, but definitely a tangent. So we walk around with like these, childhood insecurities, like we all do. Anybody who says they don't is like, has not unburied their childhood wounds yet, or has not gotten to like the next stage of unburying their childhood wounds. We all have, these like deep insecurities down there somewhere that we've learned to like mask, cover, divert people's attention from, whatever our coping mechanisms are, whatever the ways that we've learned to like, persuade other people that we're better than our insecurities. We all, and those things form us, right? Like that forms us. And maybe that's what's being stripped away in your person, like that, those layers of like how a person has masked their insecurities. Maybe that's what they need to be stripping away while they're buried under the earth. And, if you deliver words that are sweet, that are kind, that are compassionate, that are genuine and authentic to another person, again, what they do with that, how they receive that is totally on them. But at some level it registers. At some level they are taking that information in, and they may not know what to do with that information for another 20 years. They may not know what to do with it in this lifetime, but it is sinking in, it is registering with them at some level. And even if they have too much ego to ever let you know how it affected them, it is affecting them. And if it's, again, delivered with that sweetness, with your strength, with your vulnerability, with your strong vulnerability, coming in with the roses and honey. And I don't mean in a like making things sweeter that aren't. I mean with authenticity, with genuineness. That is, even just at a soul level, that will signify for that person. And you never know. They might turn around and be really incomparably sweet and authentic with the next person that they connect with. And eventually that's going to come back around to you. It might not happen with the person that you have shared your feelings with, but you are creating the world that you want to live in by being in your authentic truth and sharing it. Okay. After that ramble, I need to pause to take a little sip of tea. Whew, okay. Okay, and so then we've got Pachamama with the world in reverse. Pachamama is the world, not the world in reverse, rather. But it is in reverse. So weave a rainbow. Weave a rainbow that makes the world whole. Share your sacred work. Love wins. What was I just saying? An elaborate altar lies on the grass. I'm not going to read all that. So the circle of petals is red poppy, California poppy, dandelion, motherwort, borage, alfalfa, red clover, and yarrow in the center. And it talks about the stones, it talks about the butterfly. We're going to fast forward because I have been rambling. The fulfillment and satisfaction come after great achievement. The garden is lush and thriving. Life is in full bloom in the upright. The lessons you have integrated on your journey may present themselves as if new. The monarch butterfly is completing the journey of migration, and then the cycle of life goes on. So in the reverse, the world can talk about things not having, so the world upright is completion. The world in reverse is sort of like, maybe things are not complete. Maybe there's a feeling of incompletion. Maybe something has happened between you in this connection, and there's sort of a feeling of lingering lack of closure. And so because it is modified by the 5 of fire, which is the black cohosh, so that would be 5 of wands, I'm getting the sense that there's something that perhaps you or your person, something that is, again, unspoken, that is holding back the connection. So I'm almost seeing this as like blockage here. And so it starts with anger is sacred. Burn through the slumber of helplessness and complacency. Resist. Rage is a force that will change the world. And it says, honor the fire that rises up within. Neither deny your anger, nor let it rule you. Discern whether your rage is righteous, or if it is rooted in fear and insecurity. So I think that's quite critical. My eye just caught on something else here. So as the tall flower of black cohosh, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, bends easily in the wind, cultivate a strong, flexible backbone. The folk name snakeroot signifies transformation. Rattle like a snake and shed your skin. And one of the suggestions for crafting with it is to craft a rattle of power with black cohosh seeds. So there's some kind of sacred rage, and or there's anger that is, being held on to, that might be coming from fear and insecurity. And it is for you to discern which it is. Is it sacred rage? Is it coming out of fear and insecurity? If it's fear and insecurity, release. If it's sacred rage, speak it. Find a way to steep it in honey and speak it. Let your words be compassionate. Let your words recognize the other person as a person with their own insecurities, with their own, they've been sculpted in the way that they have by the world, by their experiences, by their parents, by their ancestors, by whatever their demographic configuration is. And they have arrived here with you in this moment, in this connection, in the way that they have. And, you cannot change that. You can accept it, you can work with it, but you cannot change it. That's their work, right? And so if there's something that you are angry about, that you feel you need to speak into the connection, again, first of all, consider whether it needs to be spoken or whether it's something on your side that you need to work with. And then if it is something that needs to be spoken into the connection, temper it with the sweetness of honey. Oh, I never did finish about the Empress in Reverse. Empress in Reverse. Empress in Reverse. Okay, so nurture, love, and compassion. See beauty and abundance in every stage of life. Okay, so it talks about the seeds of fat, juicy rose hips spill out next to pink heart-shaped petals. Buds and flowers lie in a honeycomb. Red chilies form a, I had to look this word up, and I did, form a triscale pointing to a flaming heart. Triscale, oh yeah, there's 3 of them. So it's that symbol of the 3 sort of waves. It's like a Japanese taiko symbol. Healing the heart heals the world. Learn to be vulnerable yet strong, like the delicate petals of the rose protected by thorns. Oh yes, okay, that was the reason for that rant and why it's coming through, because this card came up in one of the previous readings, and then it came up again in this reading, and now it's coming up again in the second draft, hopefully final draft of this reading. I hope these words find their way to you because they're feeling even more passionate and even more transformative, transformational than the previous time. Okay, focus, focus, focus. Learn to be vulnerable yet strong, like the delicate petals of the rose protected by thorns. So the rose has the petals, it also has the thorns. It's got the beauty and it's got the boundaries. Roses uplift the spirit and inspire love. Embody sensuality in bold, vibrant ways. Let creativity and abundance flourish around and within you. Wild roses are prolific, creating food, medicine, and shelter for all who encounter them. As all parts of the rose contain medicine, every stage of your life finds passionate expression. Create, make, love, play. It is a fertile, generative time. Okay, so we've got those energies in reverse. So the Empress in reverse, before I leave that off, this is what I was getting to. Celebrate the many stages of life by learning the remedies for each season of the rose. Rosebuds for childhood, full blooms for midlife, and hips for elderhood. So the Empress is that energy of celebrating the whole cycle, right? So the Empress is all of the queens put together. She is fertility, she is abundance, she is everything nourishing and loving and smart and attentive and balanced within the archetype of the feminine. And so when she's in reverse, and this is, as the bottom of the deck energy, this is like the background sort of information kind of informing the whole of the reading and the whole of the connection. So in reverse, she can refer to, it can be about creative blocks, it can be about a lack of progress in the connection. It can be about insecurity, infertility, and lack of self-worth, smothering loved ones with well-intentioned actions, clinginess, or just basically sort of lacking boundaries. And so I'd say with the meaning of the rose here, it's sort of like a call to ensure that you're bringing the thorns along with the petals. So you don't just want to have the sweetness, you also want to bring along those thorns of protection for yourself and make sure that your boundaries are demarcated. I'm doing the lemniscate again, but it's a little more boxy and square. You know, you don't want to just roll over. So you bring forward that sacred rage. You set your boundaries. You know, these are boundaries right here. And, you know, maybe that needs to be spoken into the connection. Maybe it needs to be acknowledged, worked with, wildcrafted. And so that energy is sort of behind and infused into the reading. And then we've got the Seven of Earth with oak. So oak, of course, is about longevity, and the seven, it's an interesting choice for the seven, but because the Seven of Pentacles refers to, it's like you're almost at the harvest. It's like you're almost at the harvest, but you're not quite there yet. So it comes right before the Eight. The Eight is the harvest. The Eight is, you know, enjoying the fruition and abundance of hard work, of the labor having come to fruition finally. The Seven is when you're like looking at the harvest and you're like, oh my God, it's been such a long time. When's it ever going to happen? And so, but the oak is a symbol of patience. So out of that, you know, there could be like being almost like being so close you can taste it is part of the meaning of the Seven of Pentacles. There can be like an element of being proud of the work, you know, like now you just have to wait for it to grow and come in. It's like you've done the work, now you're waiting for the harvest. You know, you're tending gently, just trying to keep it all as healthy as possible until you get to that harvest. But what this card is picking out is the patience. That patience is needed, that there is divine timing, that, you know, you can't rush things. And if you could rush it, it wouldn't be worth it. So, you know, if you want this connection to come in right, then your person needs to bury themselves and they need to be down there for a long, long time, allowing that transformation to take place. And you conversely are striving, you know, you've got your resilience, you're striving, you're, you know, jumping up that waterfall to become a dragon. And as you're doing it, you're watching how the light flecks through the droplets of water. You know, you're keeping an eye on the light. You're bringing in the sweetness and the honey. You're giving due time and attention to your own desires, your own, what you actually want, you know, and giving those voice, learning, you know, maybe new skills even to like ways to give that voice. First out loud to yourself, second possibly to your person if that feels appropriate. You know, if there's been conflict, like what do you need in order for the relationship to move forward, in order for the relationship to continue? If that is what you want, what does that look like for you? Okay, and then the High Priestess at the end of the reading, and usually the card at the end of the reading symbolizes the likely outcome. And we've got mugwort, and I flippin' love mugwort. It is one of my favorite things. I love mugwort mochi, especially when it's fresh. Oh my goodness. If you are a person who relishes taste, go to Japan and eat desserts. If you find yourself at a rural elementary school in Japan, go to the mochi festival, you know, like go to the local festivals and try the food because your taste buds will remember it for the rest of your life. Okay. Follow the fragrance of mystery, awaken ancient memory, divine messages in dreams and visions. And I'm going to read out the description of this card as well because there are so many symbols in here that I don't think are quite apparent from what's here, but I'll try and point them out as we go. An unfinished mugwort dream pillow of stars and moons, lies on a blue silk cloth. The thread, still attached to the needle, loops around curled leaves. A small scroll tied with satin ribbon is tucked inside. 3 rose hips split open, revealing their seeds near vials of copal and storax resin. I have no idea which vial is which, but there's a vial there and there's a vial there. A moon phase pendant is draped across the table. The mystery summons the awakening one. Answer the call. Known for its aromatic leaves, mugwort enhances dreams and strengthens intuition. Just as the bitter taste of the tea is hard to swallow, that is the very obnoxious buzzer of my dryer, and it comes through at the funniest of moments. I will repeat that. Just as the bitter taste of the tea is hard to swallow, what is revealed may be unpleasant. Healing is sure to come once your visions are acknowledged. The silver leaves of mugwort easily hide the plant from all but the best foragers. This is a secret between you and the dream time. You need not share. And so, crafting with the High Priestess, it says, to follow the fragrance of mystery, seek your native mugwort in the wild. Make a dream pillow with mugwort tucked inside to invite lucid dreaming. Burn mugwort incense before a journaling session to decipher messages in dreams and visions. If patience is what is called for, if divine timing, sort of allowing things to unfold in divine timing is what is being called for here, then maybe there's a journey here, like maybe you speak your rage and then it seems like nothing is happening. And maybe it seems like nothing is happening for a lifetime. Maybe your person is buried under that earth for, like the cicada comes up for it, like seriously folks, like those days in Japan. I think this part didn't record actually. I was talking about, did I say that in this part? I'm not sure if I did. I'll just reprise just in case. So this cicada is huge, right? And like in the part of the world where I live, they might be like this big. But in Japan, where I lived for half of my 20s, they can be as big as birds. They're like the size of small birds. They're very lightweight compared to birds, but they're huge. And there is like a single week, 1 week in the month of August. It's usually like, I think the 3rd week of August. Like basically that's how you know the summer is ending, because the cicadas come out. Not to be outdone, the draft 2 of this video has ended prematurely, and just there was only like maybe 2 to 5 minutes max that got cut off. It was the very, very end of everything, the magical wrapping up, of course, and I ended it so articulately. It was just like do do do, and I was like, yes, that is the end. Do you think I can remember now what I said? Anyway, I did go back in the existing video, and the last thing that was recorded was about the cicada. And so to take that as my jumping off point, the cicada spends most of its life underground, and it comes up from underground. So it's a nymph under the ground. Somehow the nymphs get underground and they go down under the ground and they stay there until they're ready to molt. And so then they come up from the soil, and that's the transformation. So I had missed that part. So good thing Spirit cut me off and got that correction in there, because that's pretty significant actually. So yeah, I hadn't realized about the nymph to adult transformation, which is obviously very, very significant for this reading as a whole, and especially for this notion of the cicada Christ. He's getting a bit ashen, isn't he? I've been admiring those tattoos going back in the video. Anyway, so I was saying cicadas in Japan or where I lived in Japan, one particular type of cicada, there are many, they were as big as birds, the ones that I came across. And so they were literally as big as the cicada on this man's chest. But just lightweight. And I mean, I only ever picked them up once they were already dead. I think my students came rushing up and they really wanted to show me one. And they were like, cute little elementary students, and I was horrified and grossed out. But then I consented to hold it just to not disappoint the children, and was just amazed at, this like creature that looked like a bird, fell with a plop, out of the trees like a bird, but then was just like as light as any other, like a dragonfly. If you've ever held a dead dragonfly, they had that sort of lightness to them. Anyway, so the cicada comes up, molts into adulthood, mates, and then dies. And somewhere in there they must lay their eggs. and make more of themselves. And so I'm not suggesting that your person is going to take so long that, they only come to you for the last, moments of their life, and, and then you'll be together and then they'll pass on. That is not what I'm suggesting. I'm just suggesting that the time of, it's like the incubation time relative to the transformation time, and the, the above ground time for cicadas is, there's a lot of working up to it. A lot of patience is needed. There's a lot of divine timing at play, and it can't be rushed, because if that cicada comes up too soon, it's not going to be able to molt into adulthood in the way that it's supposed to. And so in Japan, for this, it's like they're around for like a week. And according to the interwebs, it's actually 2 weeks to a month for the adult cicadas. But and it appeared to me that they were around making sounds, and they made this sound that was like not unlike the buzzing of my dryer. So not a very pleasant sound, except that it meant that it was full summer. It meant that it was like the height of the heat, the peak of August. And so it was like they would come into existence, they would make these crazy sounds, like they would be like all in this one particular tree that I remember at the end of the bridge. And so I'd, be riding my bike across this lovely red bridge, and I get to the other side, and it would just be like this deafening sound as you rode under this tree. And that was the same tree that they had a tendency to just 1 week later flop out of and fall dead on the ground at your feet. In this, I should have maybe put an insect warning on this reading, but anyway, sorry if that makes you squirmy. But point being, they're really cool. Like, they're really cool insects. Their life cycle is cool. Like, the bizarreness of the behavior, like, I don't know if it's mating behavior that makes them make that sound, but I know that here, any cicadas that are around, the sound that we hear is from their wings. I'm not sure what it was for the like giant cicadas of southern Japan, but yeah, just very, very interesting creatures, and they looked just so like fascinating. Like, imagine holding a bug the size of a small bird in your hands. Yeah, it was just very fascinating. Anyway, so having been there for a few years, I came to associate them with summer, and I came to love that sound. And even though it was like kind of a grating, like not entirely pleasant sound initially, but it just meant that it was like full on summer. Like, they are a symbol of summer in Japan and of the fleetingness of summer. And in that vein, I think that there's a message coming through about making the most of life. Like, we get the time that we get, and that time when you're an adult cicada ready to, when you've molted and you're ready to mate, that time is fleeting. And, whatever might be holding you back in your connection, and whatever might be holding your person back, like, if that incubation period has to begin, then, get to it. Go on down into the ground. I'm both saying that, there's a divine timing thing happening. There's divine timing at play here. But there's also just this, not urgency in terms of timing, but urgency in terms of you only get one life to live. And I don't even believe that that's true. But as you, in this lifetime, you only get one life to live. And so, if you're connecting with another human in a way that you feel might be, deeply profound, if there's something to it of feeling like, your fates are braided together, then speak it. Speak it into being. Words are spells, as the wise woman said. Yeah. And so, and I think that goes back to this Hierophant card, which I believe is where I ended. So back to this, and notice I skated out. That's interesting. So what I was saying is there is an emphasis with this card, coming back to this card, on giving proper attention, like giving your desires, this connection, the connection between you, maybe your person's desires, their due. giving them the proper reverence, the proper acknowledgement, and then reverence and respect, allowing them space, giving them ritual, giving them some kind of setting, some kind of setup to honor the fact that these are your feelings, this is how you feel, and that there is a connection worth regarding as sacred between you and your person, if indeed you feel that that applies to your situation. And in so doing, we can turn this Madre of Earth right way around and, you know, honor, revere the connection, spirit, you know, what it is that you hold in your hands. Maybe it's a dead cicada. Maybe it's a bowl full of creosote. Either way, you know, everyone honors in their own way. I'm not going to tell anybody that a cicada is an improper offering, because maybe that's the perfect offering for you and your person and your connection. On the other hand, maybe creosote feels more appropriate, or something. There might be something that you can put in that bowl and offer to the gods in acknowledgement and gratitude of this connection, while honoring all the different stages and while respecting that things are going to happen in their timing, and that your work is this part. You know, it's not this part. It's the part where you're journaling, paying attention to your dreams, you know, maybe creating a mugwort dream pillow, lucid dreaming, and just kind of paying attention to any epiphanies that come through in order for your own transformation from koi through the dragon's gate into dragon may take place. And perhaps your person will rise up to mate from their underground slumber, to molten to mate, to heaven to hold, to molten to mate. And with that, we end. So one other thing that I remarked on was I noticed when I started giving the sort of end of video remarks that it was like I came out of this energy, and as I was noting that, it was like I went back into the energy. So I just wanted to it was like such, like the colors of the cards changed, and it was just such a different feel. It was sort of like going into business mind, like coming out of the sacred into like just kind of like regurgitating the same words that I say at the end of everything. And it was such a shift, and it brought me back into just how very beautiful these energies have been. So thank you for allowing me to be in the energies of you and your person. There is something special and sacred here. And it's got this particular feeling to it that I really have loved. I've really enjoyed being in for the duration of this reading. So thank you for giving me the honor of allowing me to read the cards for you. And yeah, it's just been very, very beautiful, this reading. Yeah, I've liked it a lot. Okay, and so, but yes, to come out of it and allow those colors to shift slightly. So yeah, please do like, subscribe, and let me know what has resonated, if anything, out of this reading. If there's any of these herbs that you can see yourself working with, or you know, if there's other ways, other herbs, other ways that you've been working within this connection, I would love to hear about it. Remember to temper it with some sweetness and let that light through. And, you know, hold your bush up to the sun. Not what I meant. Okay, be well. Thank you again for being here. If you've listened this far, please do like, subscribe, and anything that you do like that, any comments you leave, you can just put a heart as a comment. You could put a little bush as a comment. And that will help the channel. In theory, we're going to end it here. Thank you, and be well. See you in the next one, I hope. Bye.